โอเคครับสวัสดีนะครับคิดว่าน่าจะได้ยินเสียงผมเนาะ good evening everybody welcome to my third session on risk management for Master of Science in Finance my name is Isaria Professor Yas นะครับเดี๋ยวตอนนี้เนี่ยเพิ่ง6 โมงเย็นแล้วก็คิดว่ามีคนเข้ามากำลังทยอยเข้ามานะครับเดี๋ยวจะรอสักไม่เกิน10 นาทีละกันแล้วก็เดี๋ยวจะเริ่มเซสชันนะครับ so I'll be waiting for maybe another 10 minutes and then we can start on today's lesson all the materials have been sent in our line group so you guys can look at it there's a slide and also one case study which you guys can look at it now and also I put up some of the logistics for this week and next week so you guys can look into it I highly encourage you to have an R or R Studio on your laptop to study with me on this session right so if you have that that would be great but if you don't that's okay โอเคนะครับเดี๋ยวเราจะรออีกสักประมาณไม่เกิน10 นาทีเดี๋ยวเราจะเริ่มกันตอน6 โมง 10 นาทีนะครับ and if you have any question feel free to ask me on just send me a chat เดี๋ยวนะครับแชทเข้ามาได้ถ้ามีคำถามอะไรนะครับผม ครับ I believe that we already have 12 people in our session, and I think maybe I can start the class right away. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for your time coming into the session tonight with a risk management class. Today is May 26, 2020. As we discussed last time, we did the session on exotic option, and basically there's a homework which you have to record a video clip and post it on YouTube. And then the clip is basically about using R, which many of you might be the first time using that. I hope you guys are comfortable with that up to the level that sort of usable in a way, right? Could you, if you can hear me, could you raise your hand if you have already installed R Studio on your computer and have actually used it? เดี๋ยวยกมือขึ้นได้ไหมครับว่ามีใครinstall R เรียบร้อยแล้วแล้วก็ได้ลองเล่นโปรแกรม R ดูแล้วบ้างฮะมี2คนเองเหรอ I hope they're going to be more than that, right? Because it's okay, well, thank you. ขอบคุณนะฮะ Okay, right. So last time we basically talked about exotic options, and the main idea of our last session is basically that options are not just vanilla options, right? And vanilla options are useful because it's traded in secondary market. It's useful for hedging your financial position against price risk, right? So if you have price risk on stock portfolio, if you have price risk on commodity, on interest rates, or on currency, right? So you can use vanilla options or futures, right, to hedge those price risk away or up to the or down to the level that you're comfortable with, right? But those are just plain vanilla options, right? So vanilla options are limited because the underlying assets are limited, the payout structures are limited too. So here comes the exotic options. So basically the exotic options are options that are paid out in a different way. So the difference between the exotic options and the vanilla options are basically just the payout structure. The payout structure for exotic options are more elaborate, right? So you can design or purchase the exotic options in such a way that you can tailor-made to your need, right? So for example, you can have an Asian options, right? Asian options. So Asian options are basically the payout structure are just the average of the past prices, right? So if you believe that the average prices are things that you want to be secured, or your financial positions, you wanted to peg to an average level of the past stock prices, for example, right? So exotic options or the Asian options are maybe suitable to your need. The volatility is lower, the price is lower, right? So that could be something that your business might need. Or if your business are subject to the volatility in commodity prices, right? So if you purchase some commodity over time in several periods, right? One thing you can do is that you can maybe using swaps, right? So you can use swaps to kind of smooth out the effect of price fluctuation. Another way to do it is to purchase an Asian option, right? So if you purchase an Asian option, basically you can peg, you can peg the fluctuation in price up to the level that you're comfortable, and it's cheaper, right? So that's another way of looking at it. Okay, so exotic options are Asian options are the most popular, right? And we talked about binary options, barrier options, and other options. Okay, and we also did example in R. Why? Because exotic options are pretty difficult to price, right? If you study financial engineering in the past, I don't know, semesters, you've probably seen that pricing just vanilla options are pretty difficult already, right? It's probably going to involve like partial differential equations. It's probably going to involve binary asset pricing, binomial asset pricing models, or other kind of models that are fancy, right? So only the when you price that vanilla option, it's already difficult already. Luckily, we got the closed form for those, meaning that we got the formula, the Black-Scholes formula, right? But if you want to price an exotic options, there are probably not many options available, right? But luckily, we have R, right? So R is just a fancy calculator, which you can calculate pretty much anything statistically. And we have the F exotic options, I believe, or F options functions libraries, right? So those libraries, F options and F exotic options, they are available for you to get the formula for or the function to calculate those exotic option prices, right? So it's kind of very convenient way to do that. And I believe that you guys already did that mini case already. And I'm really looking forward to watching those clips, right? Also my students too, because they're hungry for extra credits. Okay, so they're gonna be the ones who also be grading your exam, but just I'm gonna make sure that they're not gonna judge you too harsh or anything like that. But you're gonna get comments and right. So and they're gonna get benefits too, because I teach risk management to the undergraduate classes too. So they're gonna be the ones who really can listen to your lecture, and they're gonna learn from you guys too. Okay, so that was the last class. So today's class, we're basically going to be talking about the volatility modeling. Why volatility modeling? In the previous session with Professor Thanawit, Professor Tame. So Thanawit basically talked about the value at risk, right? So just to recap on the value at risk is basically a risk measure, right? เป็นเครื่องมือสำหรับการวัดความเสี่ยงใช่ไหมครับ so value at risk are just another risk measure. There are many kinds of risk measure you can think of, right? Naturally, you're probably going to think about standard deviation. Now we're going to talk about statistics a little bit, right? So hopefully you guys are comfortable with the language. So if you want to measure risk, one thing you can think of is standard deviation, right? So using standard deviation is kind of a standard way to measure the risk, especially in the finance context. Why? Because when you do, for example, a portfolio allocation problem, right, or portfolio optimization problem, the risk is basically, you can think of risk as a standard deviation of the stock returns, right? So you measure stock returns. Two things you measure the stock returns average, right, the average returns, and also the returns standard deviation as the risk, right? But standard deviation is not the only thing that you can think of when you want to measure risk, right? So if you want to measure risk, value at risk is something that is also a very standard way to measure risk these days, right? So value at risk, basically you can think of just a percentile น่าจะคุ้นเคยกันนะครับ so the word percentile basically is just the ranking of the past returns, right? So value at risk basically is just like a 5th percentile or 95th percentile, right? So what is the worst 5 days return in the past, right? So that would be like a 5% value at risk. Yeah, it's that easy, guys, right? So just a percentile. You can think of it as like if you want to be more conservative, right? So you want to think about maybe it's the 1 percentile, like the 1, right? 1 with the T, the rank 1, right? 1 percentile, or what percentile 1%, right? Percentile 5% is less conservative, so on and so forth, right? So so that just basically just the risk measure, right? Right. So that's just the risk measure. Okay. So why do we have to think to talk about value at risk in the previous class, right? Because if you are in banking industry, or if you are, so for example myself, I am in the insurance industry. These companies, banks or insurance companies, they have to put a monetary reserves, right? So they have to set aside a certain amount of money, right? How much money they have to set aside in order for them to feel safe, right? จะต้องเอาเงินสำรองตั้งไว้เท่าไหร่เขาถึงจะรู้สึกว่าเขารู้สึกสบายใจใช่ไหมครับ so they have to set aside a certain amount of money to feel safe, right? In the case of a very extreme or adverse event, for example, a stock market crash, right? Or the COVID-19 situation, right? So as you see, the COVID-19 situation is like 1 in 1,000 event, right? So that could the stock market crashes, and if you can measure the value at risk correctly, right? So you will basically have that money set aside in the time you need, right? Valuate risk, measure the amount of money you have to set aside in extreme events. If you think about a value risk of 1%, then you put this much money in, right? If you set the value risk at 5%, so instead of 1% being like this, 5% might be a little less, right? So it depends on how much you, how conservative you are to set aside the money. Right, so that's the purpose of value at risk, to measure the risk and also to make a decision when it comes to set aside money when the time you need, right, in the extreme situation. Today, lesson, we're going to be talking about a volatility modeling. Why do we need to talk about volatility? Because the key ingredient in value at risk is volatility. You cannot measure value at risk without knowing volatility, right? So today we're going to be talking about the key ingredients in that value at risk. Not only in value at risk that we would use the volatility to be the key input, but volatility can be key inputs in many applications in finance, right? You can think about stock portfolio allocation, right? So you have mean and variance, right? How can you model variance? Or how can you model volatility, right? Because that could be an application in a stock portfolio allocation as well, right? Or you can think about option pricing, Black-Scholes formula, right? In Black-Scholes formula, one of the key ingredients is the standard deviation or the volatility, right? So volatility is basically unknown, right? Because it's something that is instantaneous. You have to know what is the current volatility level is, right? Formally, when you try to, practically, when you try to measure volatility, you have to measure it using past historical data to measure volatility, right? So maybe you can get a financial data in the past year to come up with the standard deviation, and then you use that as the volatility, right? Is there a more sophisticated way to measure volatility? Today, we're going to be talking about that, right? So we're going to be using a little bit of statistical modeling in the context of measuring volatility. โอเคนะครับ so today เดี๋ยวเราจะคุยกันเรื่องของการวัดเรื่องของ volatility หรือความแปรปรวนความผันผวนใช่ไหมในตัวแปรที่เราสนใจซึ่งในที่นี้เนี่ยเราสนใจตัวแปร financial data ใช่ไหมครับ we're going to be using financial data to measure volatility, right? เพราะว่า volatility เป็น key ingredient ในการที่จะวัดใช่ไหมครับตัวความผันผวนใช่ไหมซึ่งความผันผวนเนี่ยเราเอาไปใช้ในหลายบริบทมากเลยใช่ไหมครับเราเอาไปใช้ในการหา value at risk ก็ได้เหมือนคราวที่แล้วใช่ไหมครับเราเอา volatility ไปใช้ในการหาstock portfolio allocation ก็ได้ใช่ไหมครับหรือเป็น ingredient หนึ่งในการที่จะตั้งราคา option ก็ได้ใช่ไหมครับ volatility is basically unknown volatility เป็นอะไรที่เราไม่รู้จักใช่ไหมครับวันนี้เดี๋ยวจะมาเรียนเครื่องมือในทางสถิติที่จะมาช่วยวัด volatility ได้ซึ่งเป็นเครื่องมือที่มาตรฐาน What we will do today is basically we're going to use volatility modeling as it's a standard tool in industry that we're using. Okay, so for those of you who probably taking FRM, I believe, or maybe like a higher level CFA exams, this volatility modeling will come up, right? Because again, it's such it's such a major topic that we have to talk about. Okay. Okay. So that was the introduction. Sorry. Today I gotta show you a couple things before we start the class. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this guy. His name is Professor Robert Engel. Could you raise your hand if you have heard his name before? เคยได้ยินชื่อ Robert Engel ไหมครับมีใครเคยได้ยินไหมเราไม่เคยหรอนะครับ Okay, so Professor Robert Engel, he is a distinguished professor in NYU, New York University, which I have a privilege to meet him during the economic conference last year. I was in Shanghai and he was there at the conference as well. He won a Nobel Prize for inventing volatility modeling. Duh, right? So we're going to be talking about volatility modeling. We cannot talk about the topic without mentioning the guy's name. Right, so Professor Robert Engel, he is a professor in NYU. He invented volatility modeling, and he won Nobel Prize for it. Right, and his this doctoral advisor, his PhD student นะครับ his PhD student, his name is Tim Ballerslav. He's Danish. They together invented this volatility modeling, and they both won Nobel Prize in I don't know what year, but they invented the model in 1986, 1987 or something, right? So he is still very active on this research topic. So if you listen to this lecture today, and if you want to study more on the topic, this is the guy you probably want to look for in a textbook, in a YouTube clip, or in internet or anywhere, right? He and his NYU faculty members, they released this new Faculty Insights COVID-19 and NYC series. So you can basically look up on YouTube, just type it out, Faculty Insights COVID-19 and NYC series. So he basically got a series of seminar discussing about the impact of COVID-19 on global stock markets, right? I can give you a quick tour of what it is. ขอมาแชร์สกรีนนี้นิดนึงนะครับ Okay, so this is basically the website, the YouTube clip. So you basically just type in Robert Engel Faculty Insights COVID-19 NYC series, and here you go, right? So you can basically subscribe to NYU Stern as well. It's less than an hour, and what he basically talked about is that what he has found during the COVID-19, the effect on the stock markets globally, in each country and in each commodity, in each stock market still, which is kind of cool, right? Another thing that I want you to look at is, if you look at his video clip, you can see the word VLab. V stands for volatility. So he and his NYC faculties, they created this volatility lab, right? So basically they are tracking in real time stock markets movement and all the commodity prices movement, interest rates, or anything that is related to market prices globally in real time, right? So they track that and they put that in the VLab website. So if you type in VLab, if you can see the URL right here, vlab.stern.nyu.edu, right? So Stern is the NYU Business School, right? So VLab is one of the lab that they have. What's cool about this website is that you can basically track in each country the volatility of ความผันผวน in real time, right, on each stock market, and is do a pretty good job in visualization too. So for example, if you look at here, you can see that the green is low volatility and the red is high volatility, right? So this is now, right? Yeah, this is now. You can basically do a 20 days forecast, no, 30 days forecast, right? So this is what volatility will look like in the future according to the model, which we will be discussing tonight. And also they kept tracking of the previous volatility in the past too, which you can see that China used to be red and very red in the past, right? But right now it's getting greener and greener, right? So you can see that the volatility in Chinese market are lower, right? And in where it's getting deep red, obviously in the European countries and American continents, right? You can see United States, Canada, Brazil, right, is the highest right now, right? Also European countries. Okay, so basically they're keeping track of the volatility. Not only volatility that they keeping track, they also keep track of volatility, correlation, right? If you're familiar with statistics idea at all, basically they're looking at how each stock market are related, right? So correlation, they kept track of that as well, right? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the systemic risk. It's not systematic risk, right? So systemic risk are basically risks that are, this term is arose during the hamburger crisis in 2008, right? So they want to see which firm, it's down to the firm level too, right? Which firm is too big to fail, if you have heard that term before, right? บริษัทไหนที่โอ้โหแบบใหญ่มากที่อาจจะส่งผลกระทบต่อระบบเศรษฐกิจของโลกอะไรอย่างเงี้ยนะครับ So right now the systemic risk over the years, this is kind of interesting. So 2011 up to 2019 is kind of like, okay, stabilized, there's some cycle, but right now it's like peaked, right? It's like shoot up like crazy too, right? So okay, we're on the brink of a financial crisis, right? Long run value at risk. This is value at risk, right? So they measure value at risk in the long run as well in each stock market. If you can see, if you're familiar with the value at risk from the previous class, this is where is that? How much? What's the likelihood of you getting lost? Maybe. Okay, let me look at the percentile right here. Can I zoom in a little bit? Okay. Of the first percentile according to different model, right? This is only this S&P 500 index. This is how much potential, the potential loss that you can lose your portfolio down to 60 something percent, right? If you're holding any US stock, which I do, and it went down, it could potentially go down 60%. Your portfolio value could wiped out more than half, right? In one day, I believe it's in one day. Oh, no, 30 days, in 1 month. This is how much money you can lose, potentially, right? But the chance is only 1%, right? มีโอกาส 1% ที่คุณจะเสีย portfolio แบบโอ้โห 50% 60% อะไรอย่างเงี้ยนะครับ according to the volatility value at risk model. This is the 30-day value at risk. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, right? This is how it can play out. And recently, they've been measuring a lot of risk too, not only the financial risk, but also liquidity, right? So there's a chance of liquidity risk, which is obviously right now it's like all-time high, right? Comparing to the past decade, right? And also the fixed income. I'm not sure what this is. I haven't been looking at this for a long time, but okay, they analyze fixed income too. They analyze the climate risk. Guys, this is hell, right? So okay, well, they try to keep track of everything more than you know what Bloomberg would tell you, right? So this would tell another story of how volatile the world markets are, right? So you can look at this. I have something cool to show you here. So this is the S&P 500. After this class, you will be able to do something like this too. Okay, so S&P 500 is the stock index in United States, right? And before, yeah, this is just at the beginning of the year, right? It's even like below 10%, it's so serene, right? But after, yeah, the COVID getting kicked in, the volatility went up like from 10% to like 90%, right? It was peaked in mid-March, right? And it kind of slowed down right now, right? So that what we can do with this GARCH modeling. So basically what it tells you is that it used to be a very quiet market at the beginning of the year, and starting from February is getting started, and it getting peaked in March, right? So volatility, the stock market in the United States are all-time volatile, right? According to this number. If you go back to maybe like a 2007, I hope it go back all the way there. There you go, all-time high. It's even higher than during the financial crisis in hamburger crisis too, right? So at the peak of hamburger crisis, it was like at 70%, but COVID-19 could really go up like this, right? Yeah, so this is something we'll be able to do, and we're gonna do it today too. Okay, so this is something that you can look for. Where else you can look? I think you can look at Thailand too. Let me set BK. I think they would use the same set. Oh, there you go. Set 50. Okay, Stock Exchange Thailand. Stock Exchange Thailand. Okay, there you go. Yeah, same picture, pretty much, right? So this is what, past 10 years. This is what it looks like, right? So right now it's at an all-time high too, right? Since our global financial markets are so deeply connected. So yeah, same picture in Thailand. Very concerning, right? So yeah, this is what we're gonna do. That's a volatility lab, right? So I highly encourage you to kind of play around with this VLab website and also listen to Professor Robert Engel's video clip, right? And just tell me what you think about the website and also his presentation. Okay,นะครับ. Yeah, just play around with it. This is very cool. Screen 2, I'm also gonna share All right, so I talked about his clip and also the reference on the VLab website. This resource, so for those of you who maybe just started learning R, this is the website with the capital THE, right? This is the website that I encourage all of my students to look at. It's called Econometrics with R, right? So econometrics hyphen with hyphen r.org, right? So this website is basically for those of you who want to learn econometrics. I know it's not the topic you probably learn econometrics with Professor อะไรอ่ะ อาจารย์ไว้ไหม I'm not sure. Yeah, so I understand he graduated from MIT, so right. But if you want something that is easier to chew, and if you want something that is very practical, and if you want something that can be ready for your maybe your master project, if I believe that a lot of you will have to do that, right? Your independent study. This website is very useful, right? Econometrics with R. And our lesson tonight, I'm going to be talking about volatility modeling, time series modeling. You can look at chapters 14 and 16, right? So I'm going to gently walk you through it tonight. So you'd have to be overwhelmed by all the technical issues. But if you look at its website, it's very cool. So I'm going to share this website to you. อยู่หน้าไหนนะ หน้านี้ครับ Okay, I hope you can see it, right? So yeah, this is Econometrics with R. It's basically a interactive textbook, right? So you can read through it, and if you, for example, review statistics with R, right? So you can learn statistics from here, but also it has there's a R code that you can basically just play out, like copy and paste on your R or R Studio, and then you can basically replicate everything that is presented in this book, right? Our lesson is basically down here, time series, right? This is what I'll be talking about today. So time series modeling, right? So you can look into it. I'm not going to talk, obviously I'm not going to talk about this in every single detail, but just going to talk about a big picture and the necessary functions that I'm going to be using just for the volatility modeling, right? But if you want a detail, then here it is, right? And for guards, yeah, it's basically 16.4, the last one. I'm sorry, like, yeah, I just introduced R to you like last week, and econometrics is probably not a favorite subject for everybody. And now I'm talking about the last chapter in the very difficult situation, in a very difficult topic. But you'll see. Okay, now this is the website that you probably want to look at for your reference. Okay, okay, so sharing back to this website. We're gonna have a case, and I'm gonna be talking about the case towards the end of the class, and you can basically review it. It's already sent through your line group, and I'm gonna make sure that it's gonna be uploaded on Blackboard as well. And next week, on June 3rd, you don't have to come to this class, but basically once I collected all your volatility case, and then I'm gonna do a presentation live on Zoom, come or not coming, it's totally fine, right? I'm just gonna give you feedback, and it's gonna be posted on YouTube anyway, right? So you can view it later. And on June 4th, that's on Thursday, not Tuesday, right? On June 4th, gonna be talking about credit risk modeling. Okay, and that's gonna be the last session for me. Okay, now we're gonna go back to the main slide, and yeah, let me put that up. เดี๋ยวนะขออนุญาตเซฟก่อนนะครับเอ๊ะทำไมไม่เห็น save gosh, never mind, later. Volatility. Okay, share. How many of you are still working from home? Could you raise your hand? Maybe a few of you, right? But I believe that most of you are maybe still at the office at the moment. That's really tough, guys. I try study and worked together when I was like at the second year of my work. I was doing consulting at KPMG, and it was like it was tough already, and I have to like study at night. Insane. All right, so volatility. Okay, so if you have R Studio, you can put it up too. So I'm gonna demonstrate everything that's going to be posted on this slide, and I'm going to demonstrate on R concurrently. Okay, so I'm kind of going to switch back and forth. Okay, volatility. So I'm going to be talking about introduction to volatility and why do we need to study that, right? And very short introduction on time series, just going to give you a big picture, maybe like from a management point of view, how you would look at a volatility or how you would look at the time series modeling, right? And I'm going to be talking about the time series model in pertaining to financial time series modeling. Okay. All right, introduction. Okay, so I believe that you guys have studied econometrics from Professor White already. So multiple linear regression is a plus. You don't have to memorize all those, but you know, some familiarity will be good. I will give you a brief introduction to time series model here. If no background, this may be a little foreign to you, but I'll make sure that you guys can follow through, right? Feel free to consult basic econometrics and time series analysis in that econometrics with R textbook online later. Okay, so basically we're going to be talking about financial time series modeling. Everything up to this point, I believe that a lot of people or a lot of professors, when you study finance, right, in asset allocation problems or in option pricing problems, right? So we basically assume, assume that the financial time series having a normally distributed, right? มันเป็น normal distribution ใช่ไหม why easy, right? And because there's a central limit theorem, if you familiar with some statistical term a little bit, right? Raise your hand if you have heard about central limit theorem. เคยได้ยินคำว่า central limit theorem ไหมครับ Okay, อาจจะเคยได้ยินเนาะ CLT ใช่ไหม So central limit theorem is a nice theorem, right? Because if everything is having the same distribution, same or at least the same mean and variance, right? And it's independent, right? So if you can think about this, if a stock market returns in every single day, they're following the same mean, meaning same expected returns, same volatility, same standard deviation, right? And also in each day, they are independent, meaning that what's happening today will not happening tomorrow or will not affect tomorrow's return, right? If that holds, then the central limit theorem will hold, and that would imply that your stock returns will be normally distributed. ใช่ไหมครับ ถ้า CLT มันโอเคใช่ไหม central limit theorem มันโอเค then your stock price will have a normal distribution, right? Based on this assumption, you can see that it's not realistic. ใช่ไหมครับ It's not realistic at all because COVID-19 can last for months, right? Financial crisis can last for years even, right? So if that's happened, then having a normal distributed stock returns may not be realistic, because it violates the basic assumption of the central limit theorem. Therefore, everything is not normal, right? Everything is not normal, especially in the financial world. And if it's not normal, then what's going to happen? It's going to affect your ability to evaluate risks, right? If you think that your financial risk is normal, a lot of things will be missing. Okay, that's the bottom line, right? When I study risk management, a lot of variables are not normally distributed, right? So if you're still thinking that your financial variables are normally distributed, then that's wrong, right? Because it's going to be very skewed, it's going to cloud your decision making. You're going to underestimate your risk, right? So this is the point that I want to make. Okay, so this is the world where everything is normal, right? So you probably have some familiarity with the normal distribution already. And what I want to show in this class, if you're not following through, that's totally fine. You can watch the clip later. But I got to switch back and forth between R and the slide, right? And all the R code are basically highlighted in this gray shaded area. So basically what you can do is that just copy and paste the code into R and then just hit Control Enter and just follow along, right? So what I want to show you is that, hey, this is basically the normal world. This is what you have, right? So I'm gonna copy this code and then I'm gonna paste in my R. I'm sure. Let me actually do this. It might be better. R Studio. And it's kind of small, but I'll try. เดี๋ยวนะขอ view zoom เอาเล็กน้อย Okay, I hope this is okay. Okay. What I want to do is I open up R, right? And if you want to type remove list, this line of code basically will erase everything, right? So it's like start from 0, right? So I'm gonna highlight it and then hit Control Enter, so everything's gone, right? And then I copy and paste that lines of code. What I want to do is the following. So what I want to do is I want to simulate maybe a stock returns, right? That has a mean value of 5%, right? And a standard deviation of 0.2, which is 20%, can has like Apple stock price, right? And I want to, so this is daily. So you can think of this as, oh, sorry, I have to do sharp daily stock returns, right? Mean 5% and the standard deviation is 20%, and I want to simulate that 1,000 times, right? So you can think of this as like, okay, what would happen tomorrow in 1,000 scenarios, right? And basically what I assume is that I'm gonna assume a normal distribution. Why? Because I put in the function called R norm, right? R stands for random and norm stands for normal distribution. So R norm, basically this function would generate a normally distributed numbers, right? 1,000 times, mean 5%, standard deviation 20%. And I want to put that in a vector A, right? So like a column A, right? And then in line number 5, hist, basically I want to plot a histogram of that, right? Okay, so what I want to do, and again, this is, I'm not sure how familiar are you with the simulation, but when you want to do a simulation, this line is not necessary. You can skip this line too, but having a seed, เหมือนเมล็ดพันธุ์ใช่ไหม having a seed meaning that if you put set seed on every single computer, your result from simulation, which seems random, you will generate same number regardless of which computer you generate, right? So if you set seed 101, right? I set seed 101, you set seed 101, then it's going to generate same series of numbers. If I change to 102, it's going to be different numbers, right? But if I do 102, you do 102, it's going to be the same numbers. Anyways, so I'm going to do set seed first. It doesn't really matter, right? And oops, is there something wrong? Yeah, there you go, right? Set seed ใช่ไหม and then line A ใช่ไหมครับ Okay, so now I have series A, 1,000 numbers, and then I'm gonna plot a histogram of that. Okay, since the margin is too large, then okay, I have that figure right here, right? This looks pretty normal to you, right? So the 5% is the mean. So if you zoom in, if you plot somewhat more into detail, so the peak is going to be around that 5%, right? And it's bell shaped, just like a normal distribution. So this is the normal stock returns world, which you think and a lot of financial theory or assumptions are based on, right? And I will show you that it's not realistic. Why? Because if you look at the actual stock, right? Okay, well, I can do the line plot. Yeah, let's do a line plot, and also do a basic summary statistics in a few more slides too. Okay, so let's do some plots. ขออนุญาต plot นะครับ plot A, right? Comma type equal line, right? So I want to plot the series A in a line plot, right? So that's why I put L. So if you do other maybe P is going to be a point, right? So I would do this. Yeah, there you go. This is what you get. Right, this is a line plot. And don't worry if you're not plotting things side to side, right? Because I have some other codes that implemented before this, so that's why it looked different than you probably, right? but this is what you get, and you should basically get the same picture. Okay, นะครับ so and what it looks like, then it's basically something that is fluctuate around that 5%, right? It's kind of bounded too, right? Because it's okay, the maximum you can get is around 0.6, 60%, and the minimum is around negative 0.6, right? And it's kind of like stable, right? The keyword is stable. Okay, นะครับ and you can do basically a summary statistics too. Let me just do something quick. Summary ใช่ไหม ขอ summarize ตัว A นะครับ so what this series look like, you can see the numbers below, right? Mean ค่า mean ใช่ไหมครับ theoretically I want to simulate something that has the mean of 0.05, right? But when you do simulation, obviously there's going to be somewhat, it's not going to be 5% perfectly, right? It's going to be below 5, above 5, but on average it's kind of like 5, right? So right now you have 0.043, it's okay, right? And this is the range, first quantile, I would say quintile because no, quantile because they're 4, right? Median, mean, right? You can do mean of A, right? It's 0.043. Standard deviation of A, right? I want it to be 0.2, 20%, right? Theoretically, but when you do the simulation, it's around 0.2. But the point I want to make is skewness and kurtosis. Can you give me what would be a skewness and kurtosis for normal distribution? พิมพ์ตัวเลขเข้ามาได้ไหมครับ ค่าความเบ้กับความโด่งของ normal ควรจะมีค่าเป็นเท่าไหร่ ใครจำได้ ไม่มีหรอเธอ You remember what's the skewness of normal distribution? 0, right? ค่าความเบ้ของ normal ใช่ไหม ถ้า A เป็น normal, if A is normally distributed, skewness is around 0. And yeah, there you go. Thank you. Right? So here, skewness is around negative 0.0004. So it's kind of close to 0, right? Kurtosis is going to be around 3, right? But this one is excess kurtosis, right? So excess is ส่วนเกินใช่ไหมครับ What's it excess from? If it exceeds 3, so it's going to subtract 3, right? So this number is to make it 0, basically, right? So if excess kurtosis is 0 for normal distribution, and this is kind of around 0 too, it's like a negative 0.1, it's kind of 0, right? If you increase the number of stimulation from 1,000 maybe to like 10,000, right? So this number will be even more accurate, will be even more close to what we thought theoretically, right? So I can run this code again, and hopefully it's going to be closer to what it should be, right? Yeah, 0.05, 0.19, yeah, close, right? Skewness is kind of 0. Kurtosis is kind of closer to 0, right? It was like a 0.11 or something. Right now it's like 0.01, so it's closer to 0. Anyway, so the point I want to make is that this is a normal distribution variable, right? But if you want to look at an actual financial time series variable, this is not going to happen. Let's look at how can we obtain the financial data in R. All right, let me go to slide number. Okay, let me go to slide number 11 first, because right now we're talking about R, so that it's a little better. So let me copy this whole line, right? So I want to install a package called quant mod, right? QUANTMOD, ใช่ไหมครับ or some people will call it quant mode, I don't know, right? So this package is cool because people in Morgan Stanley invented it, right? So if we want to do something that involves financial modeling, this is the package, right? You can use this quant mode package to do a lot of analysis. You can even do like a technical analysis in real time too, because it can get financial data in real time from Yahoo Finance or from any resource, from any sources that you probably want to connect your database to, right? This is kind of cool thing. โอเคเดี๋ยวขอ copy บรรทัดนี้นะครับแล้วก็ไปวางไว้ใน Okay. All right, so I want to eliminate this sharp sign because I want to install this quant mode package. So basically I can run this all together. Yeah, maybe line 13 and 14, right? One more. Well, I already installed it, right? So if you install it, then it's gonna run installation and calling, right? I don't want to. Yeah, there you go. So I installed it again. There could be some warnings. You don't have to worry about it because warning is just basically that, okay, your package is kind of old, your R version is newer. So yeah, there could be some discrepancies there, but just ignore it at the moment, right? And I installed the quant mode package and I want to use it. So I ran the library function. So now I can use whatever in quant mode, right? There's actually a website for quant mode too. So if you want to open up a Chrome and then you type quant mode and R, right? There's a website for you to look at, okay, what this function does and so on and so forth, right? Again, what am I doing here? I installed this quant mode function to do what? To basically getting financial information from Yahoo Finance directly to R. You don't have to open up Yahoo Finance website. You don't have to open up Excel. You don't have to install anything, import data. No, right? You can do all this in 3 lines. So for example, in this case, I want to import Apple financial data from Yahoo Finance website. Here's the function I'm using, get symbol, right? So GET, right, all lowercase, symbols, right? Except the S must be capitalized because R is case sensitive, so you have to be careful with that. So get symbols is a function that you can call financial time series. So in this case, I want to call Apple time series. So I ran this line 15. You can ignore the sharp sign because it's just a comment, right? I just delete it. There you go. So now, once you ran this function, you will get a data. You can see that it's not just a value, right? So A is just like some vector, right? But I actually have a data, AAPL, right? Data is an XTS object. It's basically one of the file type in Excel, right? So Excel is SXL SX ใช่ไหม if it's Excel or CSV ใช่ไหมครับ but Excel also has this file type which is called XTS. R recognized as XTS automatically, but you can import Excel, you can import CSV and whatnot, right? So you have this Apple data. You can actually click on it. If you're familiar with time series information in Yahoo Finance at all, this is what you will get, right? So what it does is basically it retrieves the financial information all the way from what, January 3rd, 2007. It was a long time ago, right? It's like almost 13 years, right? You have open price, highest price in that day, lowest price, close price, volume, adjusted, right? So you have all of these information all the way down to May 22nd. When's May 22nd? That was last Friday, right? Yeah, it's very current information. So yeah, this is what you get. Okay,นะครับ. Same thing as what you would have imported from Yahoo Finance directly. Okay, so yeah, this is how you can retrieve these Apple symbols. You can import any other symbols too. For example, if you want to get symbol Amazon, right? AMZN, you can do that too. So you can get Amazon stock prices, right? There you go. You got AMZN. If you want to import S&P 500, what you have to do is that you have to put the hat sign on first. Hat, right? This is the hat sign, ใช่ไหมครับ? It's above the 6, right? And then GSPC, right? So that's the S&P 500. Okay. Automatically, it will import from Yahoo Finance, and automatically it will import a daily prices, right? You can, if you Google this, if you get symbol help, right? Get symbols. Right? So you can see that you can load and manage data from Yahoo Finance, right? And there are multiple options. You can import, from source Yahoo or from somewhere else, right? And there are other options too, like you want a daily price, you have monthly price, weekly prices, from which time period, you can use this function. Okay,นะครับ. All right, here's what I want to show you. Let's go back to the slide. Here, what I want to do is that I want to retrieve the closing price. Let's just use close price for now, right? So I want to retrieve the close price from this data, right? So now we have a data called Apple AAPL, right? I want to import that one particular column called close, right? And then I want to calculate a daily return. And in quant mode library, there's a function that you can calculate a daily return just like that, right? There's a function called daily return like this. Okay, and I want to calculate a log return too. Yeah, just for it's more standard way to calculate the return. Okay,นะครับ. All right, let's do this. There we go, just copy and paste, right? I want to get the closing price and put it in the series called AAPL underscore P. P stands for price. And I want to calculate the return and put it in the variable called AAPL underscore R. R stands for returns, right? So I ran this 20th line. Warning, just ignore it, right? Because right now we got a data called AAPL underscore P, and that's basically the prices, right? And I want to have this R, right? So let's do that as well. And I also have now a series called R returns, right? I can click on it. So now the price is basically the prices, the closing price from what, January 3rd, 2007, all the way to May 22nd, 2020,ใช่ไหมครับ this will take care of like the stock split and all that, right? Don't have to worry about that. And returns, yeah, so we calculate the log returns already. Okay, so this is daily, ใช่ไหมครับ I can plot it, ใช่ไหม since I plotted, okay, let's do that again. I plotted a histogram, right? So this is what histogram look like if it's normal. This is the line plot for normal. That's what it looks like. If it's totally normal, everything is normal, right? But no, it's not. I can plot the P. This is the price. Oops, sorry, plot. No, let's do it. Plot the price first. Just plot the price.โอเค อันนี้เป็นราคาหุ้นของ Apple ใช่ไหมครับ น่าจะซื้อตั้งนานแล้วเนาะ Okay, this is the Apple prices. It went up exponentially, kind of cool, right? And it's very volatile in the past months, right? But this is not the good way to look at the volatility. Let's plot the returns. There you go. So not normal, right? So if I zoom in a little bit. Okay, so what do you see? What I see is that I hope that this is not new to you. Probably there's some professor already showed this to you in several applications already, but I want to emphasize this in this volatility modeling because what we're doing is that we try to model this time series on the right? This time series, why are we interested? Because it's totally not normal. First, we thought the time series are going to be normal according to theory, according to many other applications in classical finance, right? But in risk management, not so much. If you look at during the financial crisis, hamburger crisis, this is the volatility, what it looks like, right? It became very volatile, right? Stock went up and down like crazy, which you probably have experienced on your stock portfolio, as I did too. Oh my gosh, that was insane, right? So it went up and down like crazy, right? And it faded away, right? Because financial crisis, people are kind of like investors are what? They are excited, they're like nervous, they're selling, they're buying, they're selling, buying in a big volume, right? And it happens so frequently, it happens so a lot too, in a big volume. Therefore, the volatility is crazy, but it died out, right? Eventually it died out. Okay, มันก็ตายไปมันก็ค่อยๆหายไปใช่ไหมครับ but when you have a new crisis then okay I wish I can zoom in. Let me no, it's okay. Oops. I hope. Yeah, well, the time series is a little bit too long too, but anyways, so if you have a new crisis, the volatility will fluctuate for a while and then it kind of die out too, right? And if you see the latest crisis right now is what, the COVID-19, right? The stock volatility, it went up and down like crazy too, but not still according to this data set, right? And we are looking at just one stock, right? We're just looking at the Apple stock. It went up and down like crazy too, but not so much comparing to the one during the financial crisis, right? So the stock prices went down for this one less than 15%, right? But for during the financial crisis, the 2008 went down more than 50%, right? The effect, as far as I see, it died out very quickly comparing to the volatility effect during the financial crisis. Because if you look at this, I just do data na here. The effect is like it died out very slowly, right? But if you look at here, it died out like sharply, right? So this one, the effect comes and go very quickly, right? But this one kind of is, it's a very long period, right? Anyways, so this time series having we would call it a volatility clustering effect. Clustering effect, right? What is volatility clustering? Meaning that the volatility is high during one period and it's going to be still same volatility in the next period for quite some time, right? High volatility tend to be associated with high volatility, high associated with high, low associated with low, high associated with high, right? So we have something called volatility clustering, right? If we believe that things behave as if it's a normal distribution, there's no volatility clustering in a normal world, right? Because we believe that central limit theorem, everything is independent. What happened today will not affect tomorrow. What happened tomorrow will not affect the day after, right? There's no volatility clustering according to the central limit theorem. However, in the real world, volatility will clusters, right? Therefore, will cluster, yeah. Volatility will cluster, therefore we see this kind of pattern, right? This is Apple prices, but if you look at other stock prices, for example, we can do, we can plot, we haven't done GSPC yet, so let me actually do the GSPC, right? So now we have a series called GSPC, as you can see here. So basically, I'm gonna replace everything Apple with GSPC, and everything will be the same, right? GSPC, so I want to plot this basically. GSPC. I can do Control F too, but I want to do it slower so you can follow through. GSPC. Okay. So here I want to obtain an online number 26. I want to obtain a series of S&P 500, right? And on line number 27, I want to calculate the stock index change, right? Daily returns for S&P 500. Okay,นะครับ? And I can plot GSPCR. Plot GSPC underscore R. There you go. This is what it looks like. The effects are even more prominent than Apple. Why? It's so clear to me, at least to me, right? The volatility clustering is very clear. You can see that here, right? This is the hamburger crisis, 2008, right? High volatility followed with high volatility, but the effect kind of die out, right? This is the evidence of volatility clustering. Another one here, die out, right? Another one here, kind of die out. Another one here, the big one, right? But it kind of died out very quickly compared to the previous crises that we've seen in the past, right? It's even more severe if you look at the ups and downs, right? So if you look at the 2008, it went down maybe like less than 10% in a day, right? But during the COVID-19, whoa, it's like it break through the negative 10% boundary, right? So if you look at it from the evaluate risk lens, so this is probably going to be one of those things that went far beyond the evaluate risk that we previously thought it could happen in a day, right? So yeah, what I'm trying to make is that if you look at the stock market overall, then this effect is kind of it persists too, right? Not only on the individual stock. Okay, so that's the stock market, and also we can look at histogram, right? Let's do hist A. Actually, let me do this again. There you go. All right, I want to do this side by side. There, that's why. I want hist A. If you remember, A is just a normal distribution, right? But I want to do hist GSPCR, or the S&P 500 stock returns, comparing side by side. And here's what we get, right? I hope this is not the first time you see this, right? It's kind of well-known fact for financial time series, right? If you look at the normal distribution, beautiful, right? This is like a bell-shaped, symmetric, around 5%, right? Okay, according to the theory. But for GSPC, if it's normal, they're probably gonna look like this, right? But this is not. It doesn't look like that at all, right? Why? Because if you look at the peak, right, it's very narrow. Well, like it's narrow like this, right? The mass of the distribution, or the probability of having stock returns in a day fluctuating around zero, the volatility, the probability is it's very high, right? เวลา stock market ไม่ได้เกิดเหตุการณ์อะไรอ่ะมันก็จะแบบบวกลบประมาณ0อะไรเงี้ยไม่ค่อยมีเหตุการณ์มันก็จะน่าเบื่อถูกไหม probability ที่มันจะเกิดเหตุการณ์ระหว่าง0อย่างเงี้ยมันก็รอบๆ0มันก็มีเยอะใช่ไหมครับ well there's when the stock market's kind of like nothing happened, so the returns is kind of clustering around zero, right? But the extreme event that went beyond what normal distribution would be able to predict is very high, right? According to normal distribution, probability of having stock returns less than negative 15%, normal distribution might not be able to capture that effect, right? But in real life, you're gonna see this crashes more often than what normal distribution would be able to predict, right? And also on the plus side, right, the probability of having like a more than 10% return is apparent, right? But if you use normal distribution, that's not gonna work. Okay, so that's why still on the same message, I want to convince you not to use a normal distribution, or at least we have to find a new way to kind of get around with the fact that the financial time series are not normal. Okay. All right, let's go back to the slides and see what do I have for you. Oh yeah, right. Basically, this is what I just did, right? Normal distribution, the actual time series, right? I did S&P 500. This is Apple, same story, right? You can see that when there's no news for Apple, then it's kind of like go around zero. But if there's a news, bad news, right? Negative 20 even, right? Good news, yeah, it went all the way up to 10-something%. And also, yeah, I did comparing side by side, right? Normal distribution is kind of like clustering around zero, or the mean value, right? It doesn't explode or doesn't have the volatility clustering effect, right? But if you look at the actual time series of the stock prices, then yeah, there's an evidence of the volatility clustering, right? So this is what we try to capture in the model. And this is another way to look at whether or not the time series that you have or the stock returns that you have are normal or not. We use something called QQ plot. QQ plot. Okay, raise your hand if you have seen or have heard the word QQ plot before ครับลองยกมือได้ไหมครับใครเคยได้ยินคำว่า QQ plot ไหม in statistics or in anything? Yeah, okay. So this is one thing that you probably want to Google about, right? if you want to see if something is normal, distributed, or not, right, you can visualize it using QQ plot. If something follow normal distribution, okay, you can use the function called QQ norm, right? So if the time series follow normal distribution, when you plot that normal time series with the theoretical time series, okay, this is normal, right? This is your time series or your data, right? If you want to say if your data is normal or not, basically what you have to do is that you just plot your data against normal, right? If it's normal, if your data is normal, then it will form a nice straight line like this, right? If the series A, I basically let them be normal distribution, right? Series A is normal. If you plot against normal, it's going to be straight line. สวยงามใช่ไหมครับแต่ถ้าสมมติว่า if you plot your data against normal distribution but your data is not normal, this is your data not normal, right? What is it going to look like? It's going to be like a S, it are inverted, in this case inverted S curve. I hope you can see. Okay, yeah, it looks like an inverted S curve. Therefore, you can basically conclude that if it's not straight line, that it's not normal, right? If you look into more detail, why is it inverted? You can Google it, right? But this is another way, a very nice and clean way to visualize whether or not your series are normal or not, right? So yeah, my returns, Apple, no, why? Because it's not straight line. If you plot a straight line, definitely not normal. Okay, นะครับ Yeah, I just want to introduce you like another statistical tool to evaluate whether or not your series are not normal or normal or not นะครับ I can compute the skewness and kurtosis too. Just quickly from this slide, I calculated the skewness of Apple. If it's normal, skewness is 0, right? Kurtosis also, if it's normal, then it has to be 0 here. Excess kurtosis has to be 0 here. But if you look at the number, negative skewness, right? Kurtosis, way more than 0. Way more than 0, it's like 7, right? If you remember statistics, right? Negative skewness, meaning that this is mean, right? If skewness is 0 or no skewness, it's going to be balanced, right? It's going to be symmetric. This is 0 skewness. 0 skewed. Okay, but if it's negative skewness, meaning that mean right here, right? The mass of the distribution is going to be more towards the positive side of the mean. So it's going to look something like this. It's kind of weird a little bit if you think about it, but you can look into like a statistics textbook, right? This is negative skewness, right? Apple stock is negatively skewed. What does it mean? It means that more than 50% of the time, or actually like it generates returns, daily returns more than mean. Yeah, so it's like a growing stock, right? So one indication for looking at the growing stock during the past time series, right? Negative skew, meaning that most of the time your returns are more than mean, right? If it's positively skewed, you're probably going to see something like this, right? This is positive skewness. Right? So you probably want your stock to be, negative skew, right? There's actually, how do you say, a research or independent study in the past that looked at a skewness of the stock maybe right before the earnings announcement. You can think about this. Tomorrow is earnings announcement, right? So there's a researcher who measuring a skewness of the stock just before the earnings announcement, and they want to see whether or not the skewness is negative or positive. If it's negative, then there's probably a good news coming up tomorrow. If it's positive, then could be like a bad news coming up tomorrow. So this is something that you probably want to look at, right? And that paper, they basically looked at the intraday data. They look at the tick by tick, like a second up to seconds, right? Data, and it turned out to be true. right? So yeah, it is just something you can look at. But anyways, so Apple stock not normal, right? So skewness is negative. Kurtosis, wow, it's like way above zero, right? What does it mean? It means that if your stock is normal, this is normal, right? If it's positive, if it's excess skewness like this, it means that, hey, you have tail like way over here, right? Yeah, this is what it means. It means that you have extreme events. Yes. Extreme events more than normal distribution could predict, right? The indication of that is having a positive kurtosis, positive excess kurtosis นะครับ Okay, so this is what it shows in the financial data. So I hope you guys can get a glimpse of what's going on. Okay, all in all, what I want to say is that, hey, no normal at all, right? So big concern. Normal distribution is no longer suitable for stock returns analysis. Yeah, I'm sorry, right? What changes will it make to other applications, say portfolio optimization exercise? Now, if you think about portfolio optimization, you probably want to evaluate your assumption, right? Because optimization using normal distribution, probably not going to work, right? What about option pricing, right? Usually we follow normal distribution to derive the Black-Scholes formula. Probably it's not going to work, right? Can we come up with something that could explain the financial return time series? Or can we incorporate any like new model into modeling something that used to be normal, but now got something different, right? With the new financial model return, can you use it? How can you use it too? Or how can you make an application out of it? Okay, so here's the tool we're gonna need after we come back after the break. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna talk about a basic knowledge of time series analysis, and we're gonna be talking about ARMA, ARMA, auto-regressive moving average model for the mean, and also we're gonna be talking about the volatility model, which is called GARCH, right? So that's the model that Robert Engel and Tim Bowler-Slav invented. That's why they got the model prize. This is something that this is the thing that they invented to get the Nobel Prize, right? It's called generalized auto-regressive conditional heteroscedasticity model. Google that, right? It's so long. Anyways, so and is there any fancier GARCH type model? If we have time, we can probably talk about this, but right now we don't have to talk about this at the moment. Okay, นะครับ we're gonna take a 10-minute break. Right now is 7:19. We're gonna come back at 7:30. We're gonna talk about basic time series, ARMA, and GARCH. โอเคนะครับเดี๋ยวกลับมาอีก10 นาทีครับพักสักครู่แล้วก็ทุ่มครึ่งเดี๋ยวมาเจอกันนะครับ เคนะครับ เดี๋ยวเรามาต่อกันในส่วนของครึ่งหลังของคลาสเรานะครับ Alright, so let's continue for the second half of this session. The first half of the session, we talked about how I'm trying to convince you that the financial time series are not normal, right? From by showing Apple time series and showing the S&P 500 time series, and it appears that it's not normal, right? If you look at the histogram, the shape is totally not normal, right? It's kind of thin in the middle and have extreme risk, right? In the tail of the distribution. That's one thing that's like a stylized fact. That's like the feature of the financial time series. Another thing is that the time series exhibit volatility clustering, right? When the stock price volatile, right, it tends to be very volatile for a period of time, right? Certain period of times, and then it kind of die out, right? So if today is volatile, tomorrow is likely to be volatile, and so on and so forth. And if tomorrow is not volatile, today is not volatile, then tomorrow is likely to be not volatile, right? So that's the basic feature of financial returns. If we're still using normal distribution to think about the financial time series, then a lot of applications in finance will be misleading, right? For example, portfolio allocation problem. If you're still using normal, it's not going to work, right? If you still want to use for option pricing, is assume normal distribution, it's not going to work, right? Or many other applications in finance are using normal distribution as the base, right? It's simple but not realistic, okay? So this is the crux of our session today is that if we're not using that normal distribution, then what we can use, right? The easy way, one of the easy ways to use that is to use a time series model called GARCH, right? So that's therefore we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about a basic knowledge of time series analysis, right? Very basic. So I hope everybody can understand this. And then we're going to be talking about ARMA model, right? So when you think about when I think about a normal distribution, right? Or when I think about a financial time series, I think about two things, right? I think about mean, ค่าเฉลี่ย ใช่ไหมครับ What is the expected return of the financial time series? What is the expected return? ใช่ไหม expected return of your stock, right? So that's the mean, right? So how to model a mean in a time series setting, instead of just finding an average, we use ARMA, right? So ARMA mean, that's for expected return, okay? And another thing in normal distribution or financial time series, we look at the volatility, ใช่ไหมครับ or variance, you can call it variance too, right? And this represent risk, right? So this is our พระเอกของเรา the thing we're going to look at, the key character we're looking at, right? Expected return, risk, mean, volatility. GARCH is to model volatility, is to model the risk, right? So therefore, we're going to be looking at time series, the basic idea, the mean model, right, which is ARMA, and the volatility model, which is GARCH, right? And hopefully we have more time to study about the, to discuss about the other GARCH type models too. Okay, so. All right, so just a very short introduction to time series. Okay,นะครับ. Now I want you to think about the regression model that you probably like, right? It's very useful, right? So when you think about the regression, for example, the model for regression analysis, you have Y, right, the dependent variable, and you have the parameters alpha plus beta X, right, plus epsilon, right? So you probably want to find a relationship between Y and X, right? So Y, okay, you can think about the CAPM model, right? Y is what? The excess returns of the stock, right? RI minus RM. No, sorry, RF. ใช่ไหม The risk-free rate ใช่ไหมครับ expected return, right? Or, well, just leave the, shoot. All right, never mind. Yeah, I can think of cap M, right? I minus RF, that's being the dependent variable. You have alpha, right? The seeking alpha, right? And you have D beta, right? The famous beta, and you have the RM minus RF, right? Plus the epsilon, the idiosyncratic risk, right? So that's a regression analysis. Okay, you just want to find a relationship between one variable with another variable, right? And beta could capture that relationship. Okay, if you write in a matrix form, this is what you're gonna get. Okay,นะครับ. Normally we would assume that the the epsilon is normally distributed, is noise, right? So it's totally random. Expected value of that conditional on x is 0. Is behave nicely, normally distributed, right? So that's the basic assumptions for the regression analysis. But right now, we're not going to do regression analysis, even though there's going to be a lot of similarities, right? We're going to do a time series analysis. So if you think about in regression, you have y equal to alpha plus beta x, right? So that's the model. In time series, we're going to have an index called t, right? So you have, let's do this. We have y sub t, right? So subscript t, basically it denotes time, right? So instead of having a relationship between y and x, right, we're gonna have a relationship between y today and y yesterday instead. Yes, it's that easy, right? So you can think about t is daily, right? So t is today, t minus 1 is yesterday, one step behind, right? Or if you think about a monthly time series, then t is today, this month, right? T minus 1 is last month. T can be year, T can be weeks, so on and so forth, right? In this context, I gotta think of T as a daily, right? So YT is, and Y being a financial return, right? The stock return, right? So YT is stock return today. YT minus 1 is stock return yesterday, right? So instead of having, relationship between Y and X, I want to find a relationship between YT and YT minus 1. Sometimes when you do regression, you can put more x's, right? You have x1, beta 2, x2, beta 3, xt, so x3, so on and so forth, right? But in time series, you can put more t minus something, right? If you believe that there's a relationship between the variables that you think, right? So you can think about, okay, you have beta 1, t minus 1, plus beta 2, yt minus 2, plus beta 3, y3, y t minus 3, so on and so forth, right? So what are we doing here? We basically assume, or we basically thought that, hey, stock return today, there could be a relationship between stock return today and stock return yesterday, right? If stock return today, if stock return yesterday went up, tomorrow is likely to went up as well, like a momentum effect, right? If stock return 2 days ago went up, then we try to think, okay, maybe next day is gonna went up and another day is gonna went up as well. Like it's kind of like having that momentum kind of effect, right? Or you can think about, okay, stock return this year, it went up, right? This year, last year, right? Last year, T minus 1, then this year is likely to go up as well, right? So you basically find the relationship between the same variable, but over time. Okay,นะครับ. Excuse me, you're trying to find patterns of YT over time. The process of this, we're not calling it a regression. There's a fancy term for that. In time series setting, we call it filter, right? We try to filter out the time series effect. We filter out the yesterday effect. We filter out the 2 days ago effect. We try to filter out the 3 days ago effect. What left is called noise or white noise, right? So you can think of the, in a regression world, epsilon is like a noise. Yeah, it's like something totally random. In time series world, we call that noise, right? And since it's like, having time, a pattern, if the white, if you filter everything out, filter all the patterns out, what's left is the white noise process, right? So a process that is totally random. Yeah, it's just a fancy term for the time series people, for the statistical people to have a job, right? So we try to make it like fancier than, so, talking jargons, but the rest, it's kind of simple, right? So yeah, so time series in a nutshell is basically you try to model variables today with the past day's stuff. Okay. You can actually include other X variables inside the model as well. So for example, you can have you can have YT, right? Stock return today, right? You can have model, okay, alpha plus beta 1, okay, YT minus 1, right? Or you can also incorporate other stuff into here too, if you think that it might be relevant to predicting today's stock return. For example, you can have gamma 1 xt minus 1 plus gamma 2 xt minus 2 also, right? So YT minus 1 could be its own stock returns yesterday, right? XT minus 1, XT minus 2 could be what? Could be market returns yesterday. This could be a market return 2 days ago that could have that could potentially have an effect on today's price, right? Or today's return. Or you can incorporate other stuff. Yeah, you can get creative here, right? If your theory supports it, then you can basically input maybe like a delta 1 ZT minus 1 plus delta 2 ZT minus 2, so on and so forth, right? So for example, YT is the PTT ก็ได้ปตท ใช่ไหม PTT stock price. You can have a PTT price yesterday, put that in a model. You can have a set index, put that in a model too, previous days. Or you can have oil price, global crude oil prices in the past days. Then you can put that into the model, and you can build this time series model in a fancier way, right? Nothing prevents you from doing this, right? However, in this class, in this session, I'm not going to talk about the red or the blue variables. I'm just going to focus on just its own variables today and in the past, just that. Okay,นะครับ. Now, I want you to move on from the regression world to the time series world, even though it looks a little bit complicated, but essentially it's not, right? And I certainly believe that it's even more useful too, because it has a lot of implication in forecasting. You can use this for predicting the stock returns tomorrow, stock returns in 2 days, stock returns in 10 days, right? So it's kind of useful in a way. So I hope this is going to be a good introduction to that. Okay,นะครับ. So time series. I hope you guys get a glimpse of what's going on. Okay, so when you talk about a time series, there are 2 things that you need to know. If you don't understand what I'm going to explain, that's totally fine. But if you do, it's like a plus, right? It's okay. No or not no, right? Okay นะครับเดี๋ยวจะอธิบายแต่ถ้าสมมติไม่เข้าใจไม่เป็นไรนะครับ Here's what you need to know. When you study time series, there are 2 things that kind of like, yeah, it's like if you study regression, you have to study about what heteroscedasticity, you have to study about autocorrelation, you have to study about I don't know, like some properties, right? So this is one of those properties in time series that you cannot avoid. If you want to talk it deeper into the topic, I'm going to talk about it anyway, just for you to kind of, okay, yeah, this is a good to know thing. Okay, so the 2 things I want to talk about is this stationary versus non-stationary process, right? You can think of process as the time series, right? Process is what? YT minus 1, YT minus 2, YT minus 3, so on and so forth, right? This is the time series, or we call it process or stochastic process, right? Something that occurs over time, right? So the time series can be stationary, or ภาษาไทยนะสำหรับใครที่ไม่รู้ภาษาไทยนะนิ่ง can Google นิ่งใช่ไหมprocess อะไรที่มันนิ่ง or stationary, right? Or non-stationary is ไม่นิ่งWhat is the time series that is ning or stationary process? You can think about this. If the time series is stationary, it starts here. Okay. Yeah, 0, right? This is positive value. This is negative values, right? If it's ning นะมันไม่ใช่นิ่งแบบนิ่งอย่างนี้นะ It's not going to be stationary like this, because if this is going to be deterministic, right? Or it's not going to be a ning like this. This is like not a time series that we're talking about. Oh, shoot. Okay. But when we talk about stationary, it's going to be something like this. It's going to be fluctuated in a way, but bounded not explode. What I would call stationary in a simpler language, not explode, equals stationary. That's one way to look at it, right? We're gonna talk about stationarity, right? And non-stationary is explode, right? 0 probably grow somewhat over time like this, right? So this is non-stationary. But there could be other way to look at the stationarity and non-stationarity too. But explode or not explode is something that easy way to look at the time series at this moment, at this point, right? Autocorrelation. You probably have heard the term autocorrelation before in regression analysis. Autoregression meaning that there is a relationship between today and past. Yes. Okay,นะครับ. If today and tomorrow is totally independent, so there's no autocorrelation. But if the correlation occur in between two time periods, sometimes we call it serial correlation. Yeah, the term autocorrelation is something that is used in regression analysis, but if in time series, it's probably more appropriate to use the term serial correlation because there's a correlation over time, right? Today and tomorrow, there's some relationship between today and tomorrow. There's a relationship between today and this month and next month. There's a relationship between this year and next year, right? So that's a autocorrelation. So that's the basic of it. Okay, I think we're gonna look at the stationarity first. Okay, so there are two types of stationarity, right? First, stationary, นิ่ง ใช่ไหม? If it's a strong stationary, meaning that today and next day, right? Everything has the same distribution, right? Each time series data are drawn from the same distribution over time. If you believe that today's financial data is follow normal 0, 1, for example. Now we're gonna talk about statistics, right? Today's normal 0, 1 returns, right? Around 0, and then it can fluctuate back and forth, right? The next day, it's going to be the same, right? Normal 0, 1. And today and next day, there's no relationship too. It's independent, right? Same distribution, over time, they are independent. That's a strong stationary time series, right? You can think about the time series A that I introduced in R at the very beginning. That's a strong stationary time series. Why? Because each A, I drew it, I drew it from the same normal distribution, 5%, 20% standard deviation. That's a strong stationary. Okay, and what about the weak stationary? Yeah, it's weaker if I kind of relax the distribution assumption thing, right? If I use strong stationary, meaning that today and tomorrow, it has to be drawn from the same distribution. But if it's a weak stationary, it doesn't have to be the same distribution, but at least you have to have the same mean and covariance. Yes, meaning that, okay, for example, today, okay, tomorrow, and the day after, right? So today you can have some variable that has mean of 5%, mean นะครับ standard deviation of 20%, right? And the next day, yeah, same mean, same variance. Same mean, same variance, so on and so forth, right? And if you measure the covariance between the equal time period, for example, if you measure the covariance between today and tomorrow, right, it's going to be the same as the covariance between tomorrow and the next day. And it's going to be the same covariance as the next day and the next days. This is going to be equal. Right? So again, if you don't understand, or if you kind of feel like, what's going on, right? Or if you put it simply in an English term, meaning that the relationship between today and tomorrow, or maybe like the predicting power of today's stock with tomorrow's stock, it's going to be the same, right? The relationship between today and tomorrow, same. The relationship between tomorrow and the next day, same, right? Why would it exhibit something like this? You can think of it as like, okay, you have a business, and your business this year and your business next year, same business model, same economic condition, same industry conditions, same everything, right? So anything that would connect this year and next year, what would happen? Same relationship, right? Something this year and next year is kind of very predictable. That kind of relationship over time doesn't change, right? So that could exhibit something that is stationary too, but that's going to be weakly stationary because we don't really assume the whole entire distribution, right? We're just going to assume some mean, variance, covariance, and that's it. Okay, so that's a stationary. So if you have some, and you can think about this relating to the business context too, right? Why would you have a same distribution over time in business, meaning that you're kind of doing business in a setting where everything is kind of unchanged, right? Same business model, same people, same stuff, right? Nothing changed, nothing exciting. That's not realistic though, right? Yeah, so that's something that we're not gonna think about. However, we have to know this as a base, like this is like a basic. Okay, it is relatively easy to model the time series using stationary time series. That's why we know this concept. Okay, this is, I put this line because from the technical perspective, from the statistical modeling perspective, we kind of want to build a model that is based on a stationary time series. And then we kind of build on top of that, right? So that's why I want to introduce you this first. When you kind of read a textbook, then you kind of, oh, okay, yeah, it's stationary time series. Okay, this is an example of a stationary time series, right? We call it white noise, right? Basically, it's a thing that we just did, right? So this is A that I plot in line, right? I can go back to R and maybe I can plot something different, and you'll see, you'll appreciate what stationary time series would look like. Okay, it's right here, right? Okay, let me put stationary right here, so I could post this as well, so you guys can look at the code when you go back and look at the note. Okay, I can put A equal to R norm, right? I want to put that 1,000 times. I think you call mean, right? Mean, yeah, mean equals 0, SD equals to 1. Warning, yeah, just warning. Okay, and then, okay, let me do histogram real quick. There you go. Okay, plot. Okay, yeah. Oh, good, nice. Yeah, this is what I mean by stationary. If you look at the right-hand side, right, everything is kind of like so random, right? It's kind of bounded, okay? It doesn't explode, right? Even though it looks kind of fuzzy, but it doesn't explode. It doesn't really go up in a trend. If there's something that, if the time series or things that you're looking at exhibits some sort of trend, right, it's not stationary.มันไม่นิ่งละนะครับ. But this is นิ่ง in a statistical sense. Why? Because the this is the mean, right? Mean 0, and it's kind of bounded-ish. Okay, now this is stationary time series. Okay. Yeah, you can do B. You can have R unif, uniform distribution, right? And I want to do 1,000 times as well. There you go. Plot B. It's like okay, now it's even. It's normal distribution. No, that now I do a uniform distribution between 0 and 1, right? So it's very bounded between 0 and 1, and everything doesn't really exhibit no trend, obviously, right? It's kind of bouncing back and forth between 0 and 1. That's stationary time series, obviously. Okay, now you get the point of that. Okay, let me go back to the slide. Yeah, but okay, if there's a trend over time, obviously this is not stationary. For example, I plot the price, right? So if you have a time series of a price or a price process, this is not stationary, right? If it's not stationary, then we would have to use the non-stationary time series model to model the price. For example, model with time trend, or for example, right? But we're not going to talk about that in this class. Okay, we're just going to focus on something that is stationary. For example, the returns. Okay, yeah, but if it's the return, then okay, return, right? It doesn't explode. You can see that, okay, it's kind of like stay in line with this, right? If you look at exploding or not, then it's no explosion. No explosion, meaning that explosion, how do you spell that? Sorry guys, explosion, no explosion. It doesn't really go up in trend or anything like that, right? However, if another condition for being stationary is to have a same covariance over time, right? This is probably a little hard to see, okay, another criteria is that it has to have the same variance. Yeah, you can talk about variance, same variance over time. If you look at this chunk of data, high variance. Yes, okay. This chunk of data called low variance, right? If the variance doesn't exhibit a pattern, right, then it's stationary. However, this one has a pattern of the variance, right? So therefore, this is, again, right, not stationary. Anything that has pattern will not be stationary. Why? In this case, because the variance does have patterns. Okay, even though the mean kind of stay the same, right? The mean stays the same, right? But the variance fluctuates, therefore it's not stationary. All right, that's just the point I want to make. Okay, again, okay, serial correlation. Apart from stationary, time series also exhibit serial correlation or autocorrelation too. It's okay, you can use it interchangeably, but for time series, prefer serial, right? Present and past data are correlated or not independent. Okay, in other words, we can sort of use the past data to predict the future data, yay, right? If there's a pattern in the today's data and tomorrow data, if there's a serial correlation, there's a hope that we can predict the future. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, so how, again, look at the plot, the simple plot that we just did, right? Right, this kind of plot, it doesn't really show correlation. It doesn't really show the patterns over time, right? Just as mentioned, you can only see the volatility clustering effect, right? But how can we measure the autocorrelation? How can we measure the correlation over time, right? In time series, there's a tool called autocorrelation function. It's so simple, guys. So what it does is the following. So you want to measure correlation between YT minus 1, YT minus 2, YT minus 3, YT minus 4, so on and so forth, right? YT is, we call it no lag or lag equals 0, like, lag, L-A-G, lag, right? If it's YT minus 1, is L-A-G 1, lag 1, right? Just switch backward 1 period, lag 1. Lag 2, obviously, right? This is lag 3, this is lag 4, so on and so forth, right? So what we essentially do in autocorrelation function, you can think of this, even though the actual formula is not like this, but you can think of this as the following. Basically, you took the time series and you find a correlation between lags, right? For example, if you want to find a correlation between lag 0 with lag 0, what's the correlation between the same number, the same time series? Lag 0 and lag 0, the correlation obviously is going to be equal to 1. ขอบคุณครับแหมตั้งใจฟัง thank you very much นะ รู้สึกพูดอยู่คนเดียวเหมือนคนบ้านะฮะ and now you can see that the correlation of lag 0, right, equal to 1. Always, like this is always. obviously นะครับ all the correlation functions start from 1. Why? Because you find the correlation between lag 0 and itself, right? Lag 1. Yeah, 1 is right here. Yeah, this is a very small dot, if you can see, but it's actually like a line, right? This is the line. This is 1, right? What is this? It's basically a correlation between YT and YT minus 1, right? Stock return today and stock return yesterday was the correlation between them, right? Now you can see that correlation is what? So small, very small, right? Can you zoom in? I'm not sure if you can zoom in, but it's very small, right? And it is also not significant, small and not significant. You can assume it's going to be 0, significant. Can't, sorry, small and insignificant, right? Why? Because if you remember regression, I'm not going to go over the confidence interval and all that, right? But if you see the dotted blue lines, this is the confidence interval. Yes, right? If the correlation is went above or below the dotted line, meaning that the correlation is significant, there's some patterns there. However, there's no pattern between today and yesterday, right? Meaning that if the stocks today go up, then tomorrow is like a flipping a coin. You don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Also, the same thing happened with the previous days, right? For day 2, I believe it's right here, right? This is lag 2, meaning that the stock price, stock returns 2 days ago. If you know that, it's not going to have a predicting power for the stock price today, right? There's no correlation, there's no relationship. The significance might be small, right? But you can ignore it, right? So again, if you look at the correlation, the stock returns today, yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and so on and so forth, no patterns. I would say no pattern. Okay, if there's a pattern, everybody will get rich, right? Because the market is so inefficient, right? If there's no patterns, then yeah, okay, market is still efficient. Okay, so this is another way you can look at the market efficiency. Okay, so this is how you would look at the autocorrelation. So there's no autocorrelation. However, here, this is interesting. I put return, right? But I square it. This is a return square. Why would I do return squared, right? So I square it because I don't care about the sign, whether or not it's going to be positive or negative, right? But I care about the magnitude of the returns, right? If today's return have a high magnitude, I don't care whether or not it's going to be positive or negative. But if today is a high return, tomorrow is likely to be high return or not. The next day is going to be high return or not, high magnitude or not, right? I don't care about the sign, just care about the magnitude. And I do that, I plot it against the ACF function. I want to see the autocorrelation between the lags, right? First lag, second lag, third lag, fourth lag, fifth lag. And it go all the way to 30 something days, right? You can see that there's a positive relationship, right? Between today and yesterday, today and 2 days ago, 2 days and 3 days ago, and so on and so forth, right? This exhibit a relationship, or it exhibits volatility clustering pattern. I'm not sure if you can see the volatility clustering or not, right? But if today's stock price is volatile, I don't care, it's going to be positive or negative, right? If today's go up like crazy, the next day might be like this for a while, right? The magnitude remains high for a certain period of time and it will die out, right? Another way to look at it is to look at the ACF function of the return square, right? And you can see that there's a high correlation for a long period of time, right? In time series, in financial time series, we call this persistence. Yeah, the volatility persists for a long time, right? Stock prices, empirically, when you look at the stock prices all over the world, we can actually see this persistent effect. Okay นะครับ right so it kind of show okay now we talk about the time series model now I introduced you the basic time series right we talked about the stationarity weak or strong and no stationary or stationary we talk about the serial correlation right so that's like a basic layout right so now we're going to talk about the time series model just for the financial modeling you can use this for anything too but time series for financial time series is kind of useful เดี๋ยวนะโอเคขอดูหน้านี้เลยได้ไหมนะครับ Now I'm going to talk about the mean model right right now I'm going to model the mean right or expected returns yes I want to know on average what's the stock return is going to be like in the next day in the next 2 days in the next 3 days so on and so forth right so that's the mean model I want to know the average returns over time right what kind of model you want to use something called ARMA ใช่ไหมครับ ARMA ARMA stands for auto regressive AR right moving average model MA right auto regressive moving average model has the following equation it might look crazy but let me simplify it right so if you have something called ARMA 11 ARMA 11นะครับARMA 11 will look something like this the first one right here is the lag for the Y the second term here in the parentheses it is the lag for the epsilon it was something like this it was ARMA 11 what you have is the following YT equals to alpha plus beta YT minus 1 that's the first one right plus let me call it okay we use gamma right gamma 1 okay this is beta 1 gamma 1 yeah let me put this first okay okay plus let's just start with epsilon first epsilon t right plus gamma 1 epsilon t minus 1 there you go มันดูยากไปไหมเดี๋ยวขอเขียนตรงนี้อีกอันหนึ่งนะมาบนนี่ไงอิสริยะอยู่ข้างล่างนี่เองนะครับ okay ARMA 11 the first one is the lag of y the second one is the lag of the epsilon there you go now you can write ARMA 21 can you write for me before I explain further right ARMA 21 is going to be equal to what YT equal to okay let's just use the same notation here omega plus beta 1 YT minus 1 since it's 2 right here so it's going to be plus beta 2 right YT minus 2 plus epsilon t plus only 1 right plus gamma 1 epsilon t minus 1ใช่ไหมถ้า ARMA 21ก็ใส่เฉพาะตัว YT minus 2 ตรงนี้เข้าไปนะครับwhy ทำไมใช่ไหม why are we doing this okay so when we use ARMA we basically think that there's a pattern at the mean value has some pattern you can think of this in the same in your application right that today's stock price can predict tomorrow's stock price right now you use today's stock return can predict tomorrow's stock return right and we are having these two components the first component being the Y component I call it a persistent effect yes now we talking about the persistence right why is the persistent effect this effect will last for a longer period of time right if you have this persistent effect it will generate something that will persist for a long time I don't want to prove it mathematically I want to or you can think of it as like something that it will last for long because well and anyway this is persistent but for the second term if you have this term as well right this is I would call it a transitory effect or like shock right it will come and go. It's not going to stay long, right? If there's a shock in yesterday's period, it will stay, but it's not going to stay for long, right? But for something persistent, it has to be something within the firm, right? It's something that, okay, if you do the same mistake within the firm today, tomorrow you're gonna have the same mistake and the same mistake over and over again. And it will take some time to have that effect die out, right? So that's why we have these two components. Okay, so that's why we have this ARMA model to model the mean of the stock, and it's like one of the simplest model you can use, right? Why it's simple? Why it is simple? Because you only have one variable, right? Just y, right? And epsilon is something that you can estimate from the model. Okay, so this is ARMA, and you can think of ARMA 2, 3, right? Or you can have ARMA 1, 0, right? What would happen if you have ARMA 1, 0? Meaning that you have only this guy, this guy, this guy, and not this guy, right? So just ARMA 1, 0. So you can just drop the t minus 1. Okay,นะครับ. All right, so this is the ARMA model, just to model the mean of the variable that you're looking at. Let's model that in R, right? So in R, we can model the ARMA equation, right? Using a function called ARIMA, right? So the I in the middle stands for integrated. So basically the fuller, the more complicated model, we call it an autoregressive integrated moving average model. However, and it enveloped the ARMA model inside the ARIMA, right? So ARIMA is like a more complicated version. So ARMA obviously is going to be inside that model, like a special case of the ARIMA, right? Anyway, so we can do that we can model the ARMA model using this ARIMA function. What I'm doing here is the following. So I want to model ARMA model, right? In this case, I want to do ARMA 1, 1. Okay,นะครับ. Of what time series? Of the Apple return time series. Right, using this time series, and we kind of assume that, okay, it's gonna follow ARMA 1, 1, right? How do we write that in R? So basically we use this ARIMA function, right? We put the data in, and then we put order, right? So order, there are 3 parameters that we have to put in, right? The first parameter is the YT minus P, right, part. So if you put 1, then it's gonna be ARMA 1, right? The last one is the MA part, is the epsilon part. So you put 1 behind at the very last term, so it's gonna represent the how many lags you're gonna put on the epsilon, right? So if you have what, ARMA 2, 2, right? So basically your order is going to be what? Order equals C, right? 2, 0, 2, right? Always keeping the middle term equal to 0, because that's gonna represent another type of equation. We don't want that at the moment, so just play around with the first number and the last number, right? And in here, I put in the variable called spec 0, 1, just name an equation being anything, right? It just happened that I put in a spec 0, 1. Okay,นะครับ. This function will take care of the estimation already, which I will show you. Okay,นะครับ. But in here, I just want you to understand the basic structure of what's going on. All right, so let's do that in R. And I want to just copy and paste the whole thing, and you can do the same thing too. Okay,นะครับ. Okay, ARMA estimation. Okay, I have Apple, right? ARIMA Apple return order 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, right? This is ARMA 1, 1. Oops. Okay,นะครับ. Put this into spec 0, 1. Yeah, just warning that it's okay. Don't worry about it, right? And print. I hope you guys can see this. Okay, so what's happening here? We have a ARMA 1-1, ใช่ไหมครับ? And here's what we get. Let me write it down. YT equal intercept 1e minus 0.3. This means basically 0.001, right? So this is like almost 0. So it's 0.0. Oops. What's happening here? Yeah, this is 0.001. ใช่ไหมครับ? นี่คือ first number นะ plus yes 0.2444 YT minus 1, right? Because this is the AR1 component, the first component. For the autoregressive component, the persistent component, right? Plus epsilon t, and then minus, right? This is minus, okay? 0.2799 epsilon t minus 1. This is the equation that you can use to forecast the future returns, right? So for example, if you have today's return, you put it right here, right? And then you plug in, and then you can expect what you can expect. If today's return go up by 1%, then tomorrow return will likely to go up by 0.2444 times 1%. That's what this equation tells you, right? So it kind of tells you that how to forecast the tomorrow's return using this equation. Okay, นะครับ? Yeah, so what do you see? So basically you can see that, hey, there might be a relationship between today's price, today's return, and the yesterday return, right? And that relationship kind of exhibit in this beta component, right? However, when you look at this coefficient, you have to also think about the significance, right? Whether or not this 0.2444 is significant or not. What you have to do is you have to look at the p-value, right? Have you heard about a p-value before? I hope in regression class you not forget about it, right? So basically, if you look at p-value, well, in this case, it doesn't really tell you the p-value directly, right? But you can look at the t statistics, right? So the t statistics is basically beta divided by standard error, which in this case, and you would expect that to be what, more than on rule of thumb, right? If you want to be more prudent, you can think of this t maybe more than 2 or less than -2, right? To have a more statistical power in order to make a prediction, right? In this case, you have beta equals to 0.244, right? Answer error is 0.260, right? Yeah, it's like less than 1, right? So this is significant or what? It's not significant, right? ไม่ significant ใช่ไหมครับ? Therefore, that model might not be a good model for you to make a prediction, right? Because it's so much error going on. That beta is not significant. You cannot believe it. It's not believable, right? So therefore this model is kind of like, yeah, it's probably not a good model, right? But it's also kind of confirmed with the picture of the ACF, the autocorrelation function picture, that you saw in the previous slide, that the today's return and the yesterday return, there's no correlation, right? If something that kind of exhibit no correlation pattern, when you run a regression, it's kind of likely that it's not going to have a correlation pattern as well, right? Or the beta is not going to be significant too, right? So yeah, so you can scrap this out, and you probably think that the ARMA 1-1 model probably not a good model going forward, because there's no significance in the parameters, right? Again, same thing with the MA, right? If you look at the MA, you can see that, okay, yeah, the negative patterns right here, right? Epsilon t minus 1, right? The previous yesterday's shock, right? This is shock, right? Shock yesterday for comparing what would happen if there's a shock yesterday, the stock price today will likely to kind of reverse, right? It's kind of if this makes the stock price goes down, right? If the shock yesterday makes the stock price goes down, then tomorrow price is gonna go up according to this parameter because it's negative, right? Yeah, so that's what happening in the stock market too, right? When there's a shock, then people kind of, okay, we kind of sell the stocks, right? And then in the future, we kind of, okay, now the news coming back and we kind of learning, right? And then it kind of kicks back, right? Going to the new equilibrium price. But is it significant though? Probably not, right? Because there's no significance. You can look at here, right? Because the t statistic is not high, right? The rule of thumb is like 2, right? So it's obviously not more than 2 or less than -2. So probably not. Okay, the only thing probably you can believe is the intercept, right? So this is like what beta, okay, I can write omega because they use omega, 0.001 divided by 0.0003, right? Obviously more than 2, right? So the intercept is believable. So you can actually think that, okay, the expected returns for today is more than 0, right? Because the intercept is significantly positive. Okay, so that's the only thing you can think about. But there's no pattern over time. อันนี้คืออะไร Okay, not sure why there's a blue lines right there. Okay, so that's the ARMA, and you can basically try to estimate a fancier model. For example, you can do same model right here, make it spec 2, right? And then you can do more orders, right? Maybe 0, 2, 0, 2, right? So this will be ARMA 2, 2. You put 2 more lags into the model, and then you can look at the results, what's going on. There you go. So here's what you got. Okay, glance through it. Okay, this is significant. The intercept looks good, right? It's significant. Significance, but the rest is not good, right? Oh, there's a, well, somewhat okay right here, right? This is kind of significant. Interesting, right? Something 2 days ago that kind of exhibit a negative pattern with today's stock. Yeah, interesting, right? And here, the shock 2 days ago, yeah, there's a significant. And we looked at the ACF in the previous slides, and we can actually kind of see that some correlation pattern between today's price, today's return, and the 2 days ago returns, right? So when you look at this equation, yeah, it kind of shows. Okay, so yeah, you can probably use this to come up with a prediction, right? Using 2 more lags. Okay, and you can do 3 more, yeah, if you want to. You can do 3, 3 right here, and this would be ARMA 3, 3. Okay, and spec 3. Oops, this would be 3 as well. Okay, what do you see? Yes, strong pattern. This is not strong, right? Not strong, strong, not strong, right? So the patterns kind of come in the second time period. Yeah, this is kind of interesting, right? I'm not sure why, but the statistics shows that this 2 days, if stock today, it will happen to reverse the stock in the next 2 days. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's probably like some, I don't know, an analyst lag patterns or something. I don't know. Right? It takes 2 days to absorb the news. Okay, that's the ARMA, right? Now let's look at the volatility. อยากเอาอันนี้ออกจังเลยอ่ะมันไม่หายมันลบไม่ออก Yeah, I cannot erase this. Okay, anyways. Oh, you can do forecast too. Yeah, as mentioned that in R you can actually forecast what would be the next steps for you, right? So you can use the function called forecast, which is in a library called forecast, and in a package called forecast, right? Let me do this for you. Yeah, and we already saw that the ARMA 2 kind of works, right? So we probably can use the ARMA 2 to forecast the future. All right, let me install the forecast function, run the library function, and I want to use spec2, right? Why? Because it's significant, right? So I'm going to use the spec2. Okay, so here's how you read this function. So I want to forecast using the equation spec2 that's already been calculated, right? I want to forecast h steps ahead. Here I put 100, but you can do much less than that. You can do like a 1 step ahead, right? I just want to know what would be the future returns, right? Just 1 step, right? Level 95 confidence interval is going to put up plus or minus for you, right? Just to forecast. And then I don't want to plot it. Yeah, just ignore it. But all right, let's install. I believe that forecast is already in my computer. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't. Yeah, it's gonna take a while. Hope there's no error message. Ow. Okay, done. Library, forecast, call it, warning. It's okay. I just warning. Okay, spec2 f equal to forecast spec2 h1, right? I want to forecast just 1 step with a 95 confidence interval. There you go. And then I want to see what's inside spec 02 underscore f. Here, awesome, right? Now it's made a forecast for me, right? 3372 is the number of steps. If you look at the data ends, it's like an Excel, right? So the data ends at day 3371, right? เหมือนกับเราเก็บข้อมูลมา 3,371 วันใช่ไหม We collected the data for 3,371 days, right? And now we want to make a prediction for the next day, the 3,372nd day. This is the point forecast. So tomorrow, very likely the stuff is gonna be negative, right? And yeah, it's like, yeah, point forecast, it's kind of close to 0. It's probably not very meaningful, but anyways. So if you look at the confidence, it doesn't even have the same sign, right? So okay, so it kind of tell you that, okay, well, it can be negative 4%, or it can be positive 3%. Yeah, so what, right? It's not very informative, right? So because of the mean function doesn't really tell you anything. Okay, I can do more steps too. I can do maybe like 10. Let's do 10 steps. The case, I want you to do 10 steps, by the way, so you can do this. All right, so I want to do 10 steps, and there you go. So you kind of point forecast for the next 10 days. This is what's going to happen. Kind of stay close to 0. If you look at the confidence interval, it's kind of like, yeah, in between 0 to, it doesn't really, it's not really informative, guys, but it's kind of interesting to look at. Okay, if it's meaningful, is it meaningful or not? I probably don't think so, but it could be applied to any time series that you would like to forecast, right? So you can think about, okay, how to forecast time series, ARIMA or ARMA. It's the first thing you probably want to look at. Okay, all right, so now we can predict the mean, right? But what about the volatility? What we want to do is that we want to predict the volatility, right? Because we see a very strong pattern in volatility clustering. If we can predict the volatility, then it could be more meaningful because there's such a strong pattern, right? So that's why we want to do volatility instead. Yeah, there you go. If you use ARMA alone, the variance is assumed to be constant over time, which we see already that it doesn't, right? It is not constant over time, right? So we want to incorporate somewhat a model that allows for a dynamic volatility. Okay, this is the model. Okay, you probably think that what's going on, right? But okay, let's take this step very slowly, and I believe that you guys will be able to understand it very easily too. This is the main model, right? The first line is the main model. What is this? You can think of this as the apple return. right? The return is equal to what? This is the mean, right? You can actually put armor in here. This is a very simple model, right? Where the mean doesn't really exhibit any pattern. However, the reason why I only put the mean here is because there's no pattern in the mean, right? Only what only matters is the intercept. So I only put intercept in here. But if you think otherwise, okay, there could be like what stocks that could exhibit a pattern in the mean value. Go for it, right? You can put ARMA here, or ARMA. I don't care, right? You can do here. What matters though is the volatility. Now you can see that the epsilon t has more feature, right? Has more structure built into it. Now you can see that epsilon t right now is going to be equal to something else, right? Now it's equal to what? It's equal to sigma t zt, right? First, let's look at zt. Zt here just follows some distribution. I put z1 distribute d like this, meaning that it can follow any distribution. For simplicity, usually we just put d being a normal distribution,ใช่ไหม? So we can just think of z as like some shock that could happen, right? Either plus or minus, that the shock could come from a normal distribution, 0, 1. Yeah, you can think of it like that, right? But that shock, right? This is shock, right? That shock has some patterns. This is the idea of the Gauge model. We put a pattern on the shock. Shock used to be something that comes and go, right? But now shock has its own patterns. It would make it more interesting. In the ARMA model, the shock has a very small patterns, right? Like this period and next period, but this has more interesting pattern, right? How interesting? We have that pattern spelled out very explicitly here. And this looks like ARMA. Yes, so now what do we do here? We want to build a pattern on the shock, or we want to build a pattern on the volatility itself that looks like ARMA. What looks like ARMA? Meaning that you have the pattern of the shock has a persistent effect. Yay. Some shock can be very persistent, but some shock can come and go, transitory. And it could last for several periods too. So that's why you have this lags, right? So for example, there's no next slide, but okay, I'm gonna switch to the whiteboard. If you ถ้าตามไม่ทันเดี๋ยวไปดูย้อนหลังได้นะ if you I'm gonna switch to the virtual blackboard อยู่ไหน Okay, it's right on here, doesn't matter. Okay, เดี๋ยวขอนิดนึงนะ clear. Okay, for example, this is Garch, right? Garch 1, 1, right? We had ARMA 1, 1. We talked about that, right? But now we have Garch 1, 1. What is Garch 1, 1? Meaning that the shock has some pattern. There's one period, persistent parameter, right? So you can have shock today depends on some intercept, right? Plus shock yesterday, 1, right? With some pattern that is persistent for one period, square. Yeah, so volatility yesterday kind of predict the volatility today too. This is interesting, right? It comes in patterns. And there's also some other shocks that couldn't be justified with the only its own value. It could come from variety of things, right? So you can think of this as like an own shock. Like if you're looking at the set index, right? So this could be like an internal shock within the Thailand market, but the shock could come from anywhere else, right? So you can model it using just epsilon, right? From the previous period, there could be shock from somewhere else. right? That could inflate or deflate the volatility within the Thailand situation. You can get creative here. Now you can see that, hey, this equation, it can be more creative. Why? You can put second legs, right? So you can put alpha 2 previous 2 days ago, right? And you can also put it here. This is 2, right? Square, right? You can be even more creative, right? You can actually put more parameters or more variables. You can think of it you can think of it as what could affect Thailand's stock price volatility. What if you put an oil price, like a commodity price, into this equation? Can you? Yes, you can, right? You can actually put like a third variable here, gamma 1 x t minus 1. Yeah, just like this. Just add another variable, right? And this could be like an oil price. Yeah, what you would do here essentially is that you think that the oil price drop or oil price increase would actually affect the volatility, but not the mean, right? You can think that, okay, if oil price change, people will go crazy, right? And then you can easily incorporate that into this equation very easily, right? That we would call that M gauge. We put M in front of that, but to make it fancier by incorporating more variables. But anyways, now you can just stick to the simple version here, right? But now, yeah, just want to introduce you that you can get creative here. More lags or less lag, right? You can do, yeah, gauge 2 2, oops, ใช่ไหม gauge 2 2 ก็ได้ or you can have gauge 1 0. Yeah, it's okay, right? Or gauge 1 2, gauge 2 1, it doesn't matter, 3 1 even, right? Empirically, from many research, people would just use gauge 1 1 as a standard way to model the volatility. So you can just stick to gauge 1 1 for your application and you're good to go, right? Empirically, in any market, actually, yeah, volatility only persists, one period, right? However, in different market, the alpha or the beta parameter number could be different. Okay, so this is the gauge model essentially. What you would do is that you want to attack the volatility modeling directly by putting patterns on the volatility directly. Because you see the persistence, the volatility clustering in the time series. What you would do is that, yeah, why not just put the structure into the volatility itself by using the lags? Yeah, just like that. Okay,นะครับ. And essentially what you would do is the same thing, right? Just like in the ARMA modeling. But when you want to use when you want to estimate the gauge modeling, you have to use the different package, which called RU gauge, right? R stands for R, the program, right? U stands for univariate, right? Which means one variable, right? So now we just only model gauge for one variable. There are multivariate gauge too. So there's a package called RM gauge. So for example, if you want to model volatility for several stocks at the same time, then you would have to use the multivariate gauge model. Anyways, that's not the purpose of this class. Okay, yeah, just use the univariate gauge package, call it, right? And then you have to build a function. We use the UGauge spec. Spec stands for specification. You have to specify which gauge equation you would use, right? And I will show you in a second. And then once you have that clarified, right? And then you would use a function called UGauge fit, meaning that you have a data, right? And then you have the equation, and then it will spit out the parameters for you in the results 0, 1. That's it, only 2 steps, right? So you have to build equation using the spec function, and then you have to fit with the data using the UGauge fit function, and then you print it out. นะครับเดี๋ยวลองดูเลยตามนี้ได้เลยนะครับเดี๋ยวจะ I will just copy and paste this code. Very easy. Just up to this point, it's fine. Gauge. Boop, boop. And obviously you're going to be able to do the forecasting as well, right? Oops. Okay, in R, you can actually ขึ้นบรรทัดใหม่ you can hit the enter and then it will give you the new line. It will not affect anything. It will be just like as if you were doing everything in the same line of code, right? So it will be the same thing as this. เหมือนกับ Excel, just like Excel, right? You can do things in several lines or you can do things just in one line, but this is way too long, right? To put things in one line. So that's why I'm gonna do several lines here. It will be easier to read. Okay, now let's look at, actually let's install the package first because I don't think I have that in my computer yet. I cannot get rid of this blue line, it's so annoying. It's a big package. If you see that they install like so many packages for me too, it's a big function. So yeah, volatility modeling, obviously this is not the only model that you can do, but this is like an industry standard, right? I hope that you know this. Excuse me. Call out the library. Are you Gerch? There you go. Okay, specification. UGarch spec, right? Right. Oh shoot. Okay, there are 3 inputs that I need, right? When you want to model the guards, what you have to do is that, okay, ultimately what you want to do is that you want to model your variance, right? You want to model your volatility. Hence, you have this variance model, right? So maybe we can look at the variance model first, right? So variance model equals to, oh, okay. So it reads like this. Okay, I hope that this is clear to you. Okay, I wanna match. Oops. Okay. I wanna match the parentheses. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Let's look at the variance model first. So I want to use a variance model called S-Garch, right? S spelled out lowercase and Garch all capitalized, right? And put in the fanu in the quotation marks, right? S stands for standard. Standard Garch, right? It's the model we just learned is the standard Garch that invented in 1986, right? So yeah, variance model, you have to put like variance model include the sub inputs. You put in a list, right? So you have first model, which is S-Garch, and you have the order, just like the ARMA, right? So you put Garch 1-1. So basically Garch order is just C11, right? So this is basically Garch 1-1. ใช่ไหม simple ใช่ไหมครับ and you also have to specify the mean model too. So here it allows you to also simultaneously model out explicitly the mean model. I can put ARMA 1-1 in here, so I can change this into 1 and 1, right? What does it do, right? So what if I put, okay, so if I put like this, this will basically just go back to the slide that we just discussed about, right? So this will do what? YT equals to mu plus epsilon t equals to sigma t ZT, right? And Z, okay, so by default, this is gonna be normal 0-1 according to R, right? And sigma t squared is going to be equal to omega plus alpha sigma t minus 1 square plus beta epsilon t minus 1 square, right? This is what it does in this lines of code, right? Just a standard Garch 1-1 without any ARMA. However, if I were to change this into, for example, 1-1 right here on the mean model or the ARMA order, right? If I change this into 1, 1, what's happening? So it's gonna be this. So we're gonna change this, right? That's it. We're gonna do alpha, oops, yeah, alpha, right? Plus beta yt minus 1 ใช่ไหมลบ 1 ลบ 1 yes yt minus 1 and then plus epsilon t plus okay we already have alpha and beta. Let's use something else, but you get my point, right? I hope. This is gamma yt, this is delta epsilon t minus 1. Yeah, so that's the ARMA 1-1. What you change essentially is this. So why you would do this? Because you probably believe that the mean return yesterday could predict the mean return tomorrow. The shock yesterday could have something with with today's return. The volatility could exhibit some volatility clustering in such a way that yeah, there's a volatility clustering situation going on. So that's why you want to build this model to explain what your financial time series would look like. Therefore, you can do the forecast of that, right? I want to switch this back into 0 and 0 just for simplicity. So now you can see the Garch effect more clearly, right? Okay, I want to do this spec 0, 1. Okay, it went through, and then result 0, 1, same equation, spec 0, 1, and the data is the Apple return, okay? Oops, shoot. There you go. And then I could just print it out, result 0, 1, just to look what's happening. There are a lot of things that spit out, right? I don't want to explain everything, but I want you to just look at here. Yes, okay. Garch model fit, that's what it does, right? Standard Garch 1, 1. Okay, there's something called Arfema, so you don't have to worry about it, but there's no ARMA at all here, so yeah, right? Distribution is normal. Okay, you can change the shock into some other distributions too. For example, T distribution, right? T has a heavier tail from risk management perspective. It's better, right? But you have to worry about this at the moment. Okay, and here are the parameters that you have to look at. And luckily, it spit out the p-value too. That's awesome, right? So what's happening here? So you have the Garch model. Yes. Okay, let's just type up the Garch model. Oh, it has the mu too. Actually, let's do that from the beginning. Apple return today equal to mu, right? Mu is 0.001845, 0.001845, right? Plus epsilon t, ใช่ไหม? This is the mu, ใช่ไหมครับ? On average per day, you're gonna get 0.001 return per day if you're holding the Apple stock. However, it's subject to volatility, and volatility has some patterns, right? These patterns could come in sigma t, zt, and z is normal, right? We know that zt is normal 0, 1, ใช่ไหมครับ? And this normal 0, 1 has some pattern, right? So this shock persists, right? It persists how? Omega 0.00015, right? Plus alpha 1, 0.117414. Okay, I gotta take a look real quick because I believe that the parameter in front of the sigma t square has to be more than the parameter in front of the shock. Let me look this up. เดี๋ยวนะ ขอเป็น u Garch fit. Let me erase this. This is the help function. It could be parameters. Oof. Okay. มันขึ้นมา solver bit control. Okay, I'm gonna answer this question, whether or not it's going, which one is alpha, which one's beta later in the line group, just to save time. But anyway, I want you to understand that this is probably not the point at this time, because what we want to do is that we just want to take the result and then we want to do the forecast, right? We don't have to worry about which is which. Okay, so anyway. Okay, I'm gonna write this quickly. Yt equals to 0.001845 plus epsilon t. Epsilon t equals to sigma t zt, right? Zt is normal, right? And we have this volatility patterns equal to 0.00015. That's omega plus, I believe the alpha. Okay, I strongly believe that this is going to be 0.846529 sigma t minus 1 square. That's the beta based on my experience. Okay, 0.117414 epsilon t minus 1 square. This is the Garch model, right? So it basically tells you that, okay, the return has the mean, but there's no pattern in the mean, but there's a pattern in the volatility. There's a persistence parameter and there's a shock parameter that would persist and incorporate that into the next day and the following day's volatility, right? So volatility is not going to come and go. It's going to high and then slowly die out in this fashion, right? So this kind of tells you the volatility clustering. Okay, and you can, okay, we have 10 minutes left. You basically can play around with the numbers too. You can look into this. It's just a statistics, just to basically make sure that you can look into the textbook also. There's going to be a lot of explanation more than what I just discussed, obviously, right? You can change this into two, right? Change the Garch order, right? And then everything else being the same. Okay, if you notice, it's going to be a little lag right there, right? Because if you have more complicated model, the R will calculate. It takes like a split seconds, but it's slightly longer than usual. More parameters, right? Now you can see that, okay, there's parameters for the sigma square, right? And parameters for the epsilon square. Okay, so if you and oh, I wasn't being clear about that previous equation. Was it significant, right? What are the parameters that just estimated significant? The answer is yes, right? If you look at the previous model with the Garch 1-1, p-value are all lower. Well, you can look at a p-value lower than 0.05, like, right? That's a convention, right? It's pretty low, right? So you can basically believe that this is the model if you want to use that to forecast tomorrow's stock price movements, right? So this Garch model is actually pretty good, right? Because the p-value is very low, right? Lower than 0.05. Same thing as if you were to interpret from the regression results, same thing, right? But if you put more parameters in, more variables, yeah, p-value, it doesn't look good, right? Alpha 2, you probably want to scrap it out. Why? P-value is way too high, right? That's like, nope, not good. And also the beta, right? Probably not good too, right? So yeah, you can ignore that. Okay, so yeah, you probably want to stick to Garch 1-1. As I mentioned, empirically on several stock markets in the world, Garch 1-1 is probably the best model to model the volatility already. Okay, lastly, I want to show you the forecast, and that's going to be the final result for our session. How to forecast? Then, well, this is essentially just like getting the parameters. You don't have to worry about it, right? Forecast, then you use the function uGarch forecast if you want to predict what's going to be tomorrow volatility, right? And you can do that for several periods too. Instead of calling H, right, in the ARIMA, we call it H. Now we call it n dot ahead, right? How many steps you want to forecast? Just one step, two steps, so on and so forth, right? So let's do that here. So there's a library called forecast. Then I want to do the forecast. Almost done. Almost done. Almost done. Okay,นะครับ library forecast. I believe I already have that. Yes, there you go. UGARCH forecast. Okay, I use the UGARCH forecast function using what result? Result 01. It's from here, which is already there, right? Just one step. Yeah, just make it simple, right? One step. What's happening? It's going to put that into the spec 03 underscore F. Okay, and then let's see the result. Spec 03 underscore F. Okay, cool. This is what's happening. So I use this sGarch, right? Just one step ahead, right? You can look into the roll steps and our sample stuff, but later in your forecast function. But in this case, it's actually pretty simple. The best estimate for tomorrow's stock is 0.001846, right? That's gonna be your expected return for tomorrow, right? But what is the expected sigma, right? When you study risk management, you don't want to just look at the returns only, right? You want to forecast the sigma for tomorrow too. And the sigma predicted for tomorrow, right, +1 equal to 0.01536, or it's about 1.536%. Okay? If you now assume normal distribution, you can basically make a lot of prediction, right? So you think that, okay, tomorrow the stock price will be on average, the returns is going to be around 0.1846% with the standard deviation of 1.5%. What you can do is that you can basically draw normal distribution with the mean around 0.1846% and standard deviation of 1.536%. Right. You can build that, and this is going to be your profile for what your stock movement is going to be like tomorrow. This is best estimate based on 3 years of data, right? So now you can actually see that, okay, so today we believe that tomorrow the stock will be this much, right? With this much risk. What do you want to do with this kind of information? You can actually do a portfolio allocation problem, right? We think that, okay, the stock return and the variance is going to be this, right? This is obviously better than just using the standard deviation from like a standard Markowitz portfolio allocation model. Why? This is the forecast. You already use a lot of information to come up to this point, and empirically, it's actually better too, right? You can use this information to do option pricing, right? You can use this information to do calculate value at risk, right? So what would be the tomorrow value at risk? Yeah, you already have this information, right? And you can actually compute, okay, what will be the value at risk for tomorrow's stock, right? And you can obviously do more than just one step, right? If you already have a lot of data, you can actually predict more than one step ahead. You can do 10 steps ใช่ไหมครับ เสียงหาย okay. Then spec 03 underscore F. There you go, right? Okay, since why this is the same number? Because your model basically just y equal to mu plus epsilon, right? So if you take expectation on both sides, then just get the mu. Therefore, the same mean, right? But the variance changes. Oh, this one variance actually going up, right? So again, if you actually see this pattern, the variance are going up. Right now, the variance might be too low. In the future, the variance will go up to the level at the equilibrium, right? So that's why you can actually see the sigma go up slowly up towards the equilibrium state. right? Sometimes you can see sigma going down too. So it really depends on the data. It really depends on how much is your long-term volatility, so on and so forth, right? Because we're now talking about the dynamic situation of the variance. Okay, but each day you can compute, for example, you can compute portfolio allocation, right? Or each day you can compute value at risk, right? Or port allocation, or option pricing, a lot of things, right? So there are a lot of applications came out of this. Okay,นะครับ. This is the end of my lecture, and I hope I'm making clear on the major topics that I want to convey, right? You can, if you're more into statistical modeling, you can look into these fancier models of GARCH, right? Not the standard GARCH. Yeah, at your own convenience. It's not necessary. Okay,นะครับ3 ทุ่มแล้ว but the case study. Okay, let's look at the case together, and we're almost done. Case. Where is the case? Okay, I'm gonna go through the line. Volatility. You can open up the volatility case study. Oh, here, there you go. Found it. Right. I want you to team up in a team of. You can do in team of 4. Max. You can do team. You can do alone. You can do 2. You can do 3, up to 4. Right. It's due by next week by midnight. Submit your work here in this Google form. What I want you to do is basically do what I just did. Right. Download data, daily stock returns of 5 selected companies, any companies, Thailand, US, whatever. Right. Use the most recent data up to 3 years, at least 1 year. Right. Explain why you picked them. Yeah, using Excel or R, rearrange the data in clean, easy to work format, or you can just use the quant mode function, right? We talked about that. It's very easy to retrieve the financial data, right? Graph the series of return of each company and the market index. Yay. Yeah, I already did that, right? So you can just do it in a histogram, you can do line plots and whatnot. Hopefully you will see the volatility clustering patterns, นะครับ and make sure it's a returns, not price, right? ไม่ใช่ราคานะครับ I want you to form 2 portfolios, one being equally weighted portfolio. If 5, then 20% each, right? Or for portfolio B, it can be any optimally weighted portfolios up, according to your choice, right? It can be minimum variance. It can be according to Markowitz, right? Highest return, highest sharp ratio or whatnot. You can do whatever you like, right? But it's optimal. Different than the 4A, portfolio A, right? I want to analyze the risk and return profiles of the 2 portfolios using the tool we learned in class, but not limited to stock beta, standard deviation, zero correlation, GARCH type models, value at risk, right? So just get the previous return profiles, and then you analyze it. Beta, standard deviation, returns and risk, right? You can use GARCH too if you'd like, right? Just to get the sense of what's your portfolio risk and return. That's the purpose of number 5, right? And for number 6, I want you to provide a 10-day forecast of your portfolio risk and returns. Yay, easy, right? We already talked about this. Okay, the forecast must include the expected price. Okay, I'm talking about price, right? And expected risk, right? Or you can think about returns too. That's okay, right? But you can easily convert the returns into price. I hope this is trivial for you, but you can think about this a little bit, right? I want you to think about what would be the 10-day prices and risks, right? What's the value at risk? What's the confidence interval of price and returns? นะเอาง่ายๆนะครับ Yahoo Finance, you can use R, you can use Excel, but I hope R is already easy for you. I hope. Right? By midnight of next week, I want you to submit in the Google form. And what I want is that, well, PowerPoint presentation, Excel. If you use Excel, then you can submit Excel. I'm gonna make it. If you don't have Excel, that's fine too, right? I want to see R code. If you want to use R, that's cool. If you don't, that's fine, right? And I want you to do the same thing. Post a clip on YouTube explaining what you do for 10 minutes. Right, submit the clip in this link. okay, and you're going to be scored according to this, right? Presentation, shoot, this is for from last year, but anyway, if you do Excel or R alone, so this is going to be 70%, 70%. I'm gonna combine these two together if you only use one program, right? And then 5 extra credit if you can do 10-day forecast being accurate. Yeah, if you think that the stock price will go within the boundaries that you set, then they're going to look at a 10-day ahead, and then if it's accurate, then you're good to go, right? If you're not, then that's fine, doesn't hurt. Okay, นะครับ good luck มีแค่นี้นะครับ I hope this is clear. If you have any questions, please feel free to. Okay, I see some questions. Okay, มันอยู่ในนี้ไหม chat นะครับ อาจารย์ครับ a bit questions about the model today. Does armor guard model require stationarity? Okay, yes, it requires stationarity. So if you, okay, this is like a technical point. If you already have a stock returns, that's kind of guarantee stationarity in a way. So that's what that then you can apply armor guard model directly. However, formally, when you do research, you would have to test stationarity. You would have to test autocorrelation. You would have to do a bunch of stuff before actually applying the model, right? But this model is kind of like, hey, 3 hours, right? So yeah, but thank you for the questions. Okay, นะครับ I hope this is clear and we can discuss in line นะครับ Thank you very much for tonight. This is a long session with a difficult topic, I believe, and I understand if this is the first time for you to hear anything like this, right? But I hope this is clear to you, right? The bottom line is that volatility is clustering, and if you still use volatility from your historical data, it's going to be biased, right? When we have this fancy model, why don't we use it, right? It's going to be more accurate for you to make a decision based on risk and return profile. You're going to have better informed decision, and you can do a lot of things with it, right? Option pricing, allocation, value at risk calculation. I hope this is clear,นะครับ, and thank you very much for tonight. You can leave the Zoom session. Thank you very much ครับ ขอบคุณครับ Okay, is Jackie Chu still with me? Okay, yeah, it is not stationary, but okay, at least Jack Chu นะครับ if there's no time trend, you can use armor guards. Yeah, if there's a time trend, then you probably want to use ARIMA guards. Okay. Or not, there's different definition on stationarity. There's some new ones and a lot of details in it. We can talk behind the scene if you'd like. Yeah, I'm very happy to talk about it. And thank you very much. Feel free to leave the session. I hope that's clear. You can read the textbook first, and then we can discuss about it. ขอบคุณครับ Okay, ขอบคุณครับ